we have learned, understood, and experienced the powerful tool that storytelling is. Professor Sarangi, who is present with us here today, has incessantly described its importance in communication. So I thought, what better way to start this conclave than to start with a story? A story that we all have heard, relished, and have got inspired by numerous times, but each time it manages to give us goosebumps. His journey began in the 1800s when he started experimenting with building gasoline-powered engines. He struggled to find financial success and faced numerous failures in his early attempts to build a working automobile. He was unable to secure funding for his ideas and faced rejection from investors who saw his concepts as unworkable. In 1903, he finally succeeded in creating the Ford Motor Company. But it wasn't an immediate success. The company struggled to turn a profit and faced intense competition from other automobile manufacturers. Ford began experimenting with new manufacturing techniques, such as the assembly line, the $5 workday, and the Model T car, one of the most affordable cars an average American bought. Despite these successes, Ford faced many more challenges and failures throughout his career, such as labor strikes and economic downturns, but he always found a way to come back stronger. Ford's story is a reminder that failure is a natural part of the entrepreneurial journey and that true success comes from persevering through these failures and never giving up on your dreams. His determination and willingness to innovate and adapt to changing circumstances were key factors in his ultimate success. Ford's story is an inspiration for entrepreneurs everywhere and serves as a reminder that with hard work, determination, and a bit of creativity, anything is possible. Respected director, sir, distinguished speakers, faculties, and my dear batchmates, we are happy to have you here with us today. And on behalf of the entire XLRI fraternity, I extend you a very warm welcome to the third edition of our flagship startup conclave, INGENIUM, organized by Innovate, the entrepreneurship cell of PGDM General Management Program of XLRI Jamshedpur. Please give a huge round of applause. I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all the speakers who made out the time of their busy schedules to grace us with their presence today. The theme for this year has been decided to be Startup Ecosystem and Competition, with the aim to lend us some deep insights into the startup ecosystem in India and the competition landscape therein. Startups play a vital role in competitive markets with their focus on innovation and new markets or products. They provide dynamism to markets and offer more efficient ways to enhance consumer welfare. Against this backdrop, this conclave is an attempt to bring some of the brightest startup founders together to learn about their journey and create a better understanding of the startup landscape in India, which I am sure all of us will find helpful, whether or not we are entrepreneurs. Many of us, in fact, have either thought of entrepreneurship as a career or have been an entrepreneur, so it will be all very relevant for us. Now, you must be wondering, who is this lady who has been nearly going on for 10 minutes? So let me firstly introduce myself. I am Dilpreet Kaur, standing on this side of the table today for a change. And I have with me my colleague Shivang Chaudhary. We will be your hosts for the first half of the day, followed by my able colleagues Urvashi and Surbhi Sinha, who will be your hosts for the second half of the day. For you, we have lined up today thought-provoking keynote addresses and intriguing panel discussions, each of which will revolve around a certain topic against which the central theme of the conclave is tied up.
Ingenium is a Latin term that refers to innate talent or natural ability in the context of entrepreneurship. It can refer to the inherent skills and abilities that an individual possesses that enable them to successfully to be successful in starting and running a business. This could include traits such as creativity, innovation, problem solving, and the ability to think outside of the box. Ingenium is often considered to be a key factor in the success of entrepreneurs, as it allows them to identify and capitalize on opportunities that others may not see. Additionally, it can also help entrepreneurs to overcome obstacles and challenges that they may encounter along the way. Overall, having a strong sense of ingenium can be a powerful tool for entrepreneurs as they strive to turn their ideas and vision into successful businesses. Talking about our entrepreneurship cell, Innovate, its mission is to offer comprehensive growth opportunities and startup exposure to aspiring business owners among us by giving us a platform such as this to connect with others, learn about different industries, develop ideas, and most importantly, create a mindset that innovation and entrepreneurship exists.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Shivang. I'm very excited to hear from the stalwarts themselves today, and I'm sure the audience is too. Before we begin, first things first, continuing with our tradition, I would request Father S. George, Director, XLRI Jamshedpur, Father Donald D. Silva, Dean of Administration and Finance, and Professor Sunil Kumar Sarangi, Faculty General Management Area, to inaugurate the event by lighting the lamp. I also request all the esteemed guests with us here today to join the ritual. Now, to welcome our distinguished guests, I request Father S. George and Father Donald de Silva to do the honors. Firstly, I would request Father S. George to present a bouquet to Mr. Rajiv Warrior, EVP, Wadhwani Foundation. So please come on stage. I also request Father S. George to present a bouquet to Mr. Saurabh Garg, co-founder, nobroker.com. Thank you, Father George, for facilitating our guests. Now, I would invite Father Donald de Silva to give away the bouquet to Mr. Avelu Roy, MD, Kolkata Ventures. I would also request Father Donald de Silva to give away a bouquet to Ms. Yashaswini Ramaswamy, serial entrepreneur and CEO, Great Place to Work. Thank you, Father Donald, for felicitating our guests. I will now hand over the mic to Shivank.
Moving on, I'd briefly introduce Father S. George, Director, XLRI Jamshedpur, and request him to address the audience. Father S. George joined on as the 14th Director of XLRI on 14th August 2022. Previously, he was a Director of XLRI Delhi NCR. Father has over 14 years of experience in management education in different fields of OB areas like individual behavior in organizations, transformational leadership, and managerial counseling, etc. His research interests are in the areas of leadership and personnel effectiveness and managerial counseling. He has also written several articles and research papers for reputed national and international journals. Father S. George has done a little intellectual contribution through the publications of numerous journals and papers, and has also undertaken a number of consultancies on emotional intelligence, team building, and leadership. So please do the honors.
Good morning to you all. Dear guests, Mr. Saurav, Mr. Rajiv, and others, welcome to XLRI. And I hope your interaction will enrich our students' perspective and learning abilities. And may this day be fully fruitful. I believe in one thing which may not be true. Leadership can be helped through training program. Whereas entrepreneurship, certain personality traits must be there in order to be an entrepreneur. Almost like sweeping statements, entrepreneurs are born. Maybe help we can give. For example, I am yet to come across some of the top entrepreneur. They are all in one personality trait, that dominant personality. The other three types don't appear. Even they become entrepreneur, they always remain small time, satisfied with that. The whole point is risk taking. They say it is also a trade you're born with. If that is not there, then it becomes very difficult, because entrepreneurship is always taking risk. And if you do wrong, of course, you also find in prison people who are also high on risk taking. So high on risk taking trade is there. Either you will become very successful entrepreneur, or there is a possibility you may end up in jail also. Because for both category, that is one personality trait which is most important. And without that, they just not able to reach the top entrepreneurial group. I'm insisting on personality. Of course, we are born with it, so we can't do much about it. It's a behavior which we can shape and modify. For example, in Big Five personality test, if you score high on openness, low on conscientiousness means being responsible, following authority. If you have inherently those qualities, then invariably you will be a liberal. If it is opposite, that openness is you score low and conscientiousness is very high, you will support right-wing ideology. It's almost like it is not, you understand the theory and you support a group. What is in you, your personality almost determines which side conveniently you will be taking. So it's an entrepreneurial conclave. I'm sure, welcome to all the speakers. Share your life experiences. That's the most important. Because as a theory, also theories are there, but what really changes a person is listening to your life experience. So thanks for coming here and addressing our students.
Now I request Father Donald De Silva Dean Administration and Finance, to come up on stage and share a few words with us. Father Donald is also a Board of Governors for XLRI.
Reverend Father S. George, the director, and keynote speakers, mainly Saurabh and Rajiv, and all other panelists, speakers who have accepted this request from XLRI and offered their time and valuable time. Today, you know how precious it is for each one of us, and I thank them. And a word of appreciation before I begin anything, that is the organizing committee of this conclave. Why do I say this? This is one of the rare panel conclaves that is put everything together in a very meaningful way. If you see the schedule, you have everything in that conclave from the students' point of view to get ideas from the founders, women entrepreneurs. That is something very, very special. And the investors. And also you have something to see beyond a roadmap for the future. So when you put everything together, I think they have done a very good job in putting everything together in a very meaningful way and a very logical way. And that should actually conclude our conclave before we begin the conclave, because we have already achieved by putting everything together. And the selection of the panelists, you have mixed members from every kind of the market, and they have a lot to offer, and it is a face-to-face interaction. It's not online. There are so many opportunities for the students to contemplate on ecosystem, startup ecosystem. And if I say, use the word contemplate, this more than just listening and hearing. Some people come and hear things and go. Some people listen, and some people contemplate on what is said. Now, I expect the students, the future entrepreneurs, to contemplate on everything that is shared by the panelists, because they are going to talk from their experience, their struggles, and how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur in today's context, when there is unemployment in the country, and in the past we are depending on the foreign technology, and with the lack of resources, nobody could come forward and take risk. As Father said, taking risk is one of the most difficult things, because we are venturing into uncertainty of life. All those who have got already PPOs or in the BMHR or in GM already have got jobs, taking risk, sacrificing your job and jumping into entrepreneurial work and start getting into startups is not easy thing. And there are people who take that risk. There are courageous people. So when you contemplate, I'm sure even if there's one person in this hall who thinks and acts and comes up, and we refer to their names after 5 years. Today, everybody talks about Swiggy. Now latest is Dream11. Dream11 is there. So these are all big things happened because the small ideas generated somewhere, and by interacting with others, those ideas became a reality. And today we are there to discuss these ideas, how they became a reality. And from there, if you contemplate and meditate on those ideas, whatever emerges in your minds and hearts should become one day a reality, and you will be referred. And XLRI offers a lot of opportunities. We have Exceed, XLRI Center for Entrepreneurship Excellence and Development. So Exceed is a platform. It's already there, started 5-6 years ago, and that offers opportunities for investors, opportunities for the advisors and counselors, and also gives some kind of financial help. And if you see in the website, there is a page where we're inviting people to register and get this kind of help, financial help. And last year, I think we gave to 2 or 3 students, we gave some financial help to think about some startup. So I don't know how far they have progressed, but we have done something on that. And biggest Maxi Fair is organized in XLRI, which again thinks of this kind of problem solving and thinking about new ideas and evolving market strategies. So XLRI provides opportunities. So let's come together and make this day a meaningful one, and hope you benefit a lot from the experts. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Father Donald and Father S. George, for your inspiring words. I would again request Father Donald to felicitate our guests, Ms. Vasudha Srivastav, founder and MD, Amplify Services and Express Earth Digital Services. Ma'am, please. Thank you, Father Donald. I would request Father George to felicitate our guest, Mr. Pratyush Nalla, founding member of Business. Thank you, Father George. I would request Professor Sarangi to felicitate one more guest from Vadvani Foundation, Mr. Shubhabrata. Now, to begin our event, we have our first keynote address by Mr. Rajiv Warrior, EVP, Vadvani Foundation, focusing on a business school's role in the startup ecosystem. To briefly introduce him, Mr. Rajiv Warrior is a highly accomplished and dynamic individual with a wealth of experience in technology strategy. With an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from NIT Bhopal and a postgraduate degree in software enterprise management from IIM Bangalore, Mr. Warrior has built a successful career in technology, rising through the ranks to become the EVP at Vadvani Entrepreneur, Vadvani Foundation. With his career spanning more than 3 decades, he has held several positions across different companies. He started off his career as a graduate engineer trainee at L&T Mumbai and went on to work as an associate consultant at TCS for more than 8 years, executing several system design and development projects for customers. After TCS, he worked at I2 Technologies as a development manager, and during the year 2000, he had a brief stint in the e-business group of Infosys as a technical architect. He has also served as the Vice President Engineering at Symphony Services, Vice President at NetWeaver Development at SAP Labs, Vice President Research and Development at FE, and CTO and Senior VP, Supply Chain and Cloud Operations at eka1.com. Throughout his career, Rajiv has demonstrated a commitment to excellence and has consistently delivered outstanding results. His innovative approach to problem solving and ability to think outside the box has been instrumental in driving his success. Now, I request Mr. Warrior to deliver his address to the audience. Please give a huge round of applause. working?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. How are you? So it's a pleasure to represent my organization, which is too loud, which is Wadhwani Foundation. That was a long list of stuff that I did, which was narrated there. But I was a technologist up until a year and a half ago, half of which I worked for Ramesh Wadhwani, who founded this Wadhwani Foundation. So Ramesh Wadhwani is, he's an engineer. He was born in 1947 in Pakistan and migrated to India. Is this working? So he migrated to Delhi and lived in the refugee camps of Delhi after partition, and then he went on to study his up until 12th in Delhi, and then subsequently went to IIT Bombay, did his engineering in 1960, late 60s, went to Carnegie Mellon, did his PhD in 2 years, and 72 he started his first company. And between 72 and 91 he founded 2 or 3 companies, and all of them he exited. In 91, he started a company named Aspect Development. What that company did was to collect the information about parts, electronic and electromechanical off-the-shelf parts availability, and put it into a database and sold that database. There was a huge data factory in Bangalore, which collected this data, put it into a database, and sold it to IBMs and Intels and all large electronic equipment manufacturers. And that company had a big development data operations in Bangalore and was sold weeks before the 2000 dot-com bust for $9.5 billion. So somebody was telling me yesterday, Saurabh was telling me, there's a lot of luck and timing that you get when you are an entrepreneur, right? So it's a lot of it is your effort. How do you build the company? A lot of it is about the strategic decisions you take, and there is an element of market. At that time, if you look at the early 90s or the whole of 90s, the world was moving into .com. Everybody wanted a web presence. Everybody wanted to take their solutions to the internet, and there was marketplaces like off businesses trying to build. Now in early 90s, late 90s, there were marketplaces to sell steel, all kind of components, everything on the internet. And the vision was to integrate the whole supply chain and give visibility to your orders and what is behind your orders, what parts are dependent on your orders on the internet to the whole world. And that's the promise on which Ramesh sold his company for $9.5 billion. And then I was part of most of that journey from 95 through 2003 or so. Subsequent to that exit, he founded the Symphony Technology Group, which is a multi-billion-dollar fund which invested into companies, mature companies, buy them, transform them, change their cost structure, and exit out of it. So that's what. So he was very much a trader kind of a mentality. So all said and done, now he's worth quite a bit of money, and he has decided to spend half his money on the stuff that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so Zoom login. So we can make this an interactive affair. You can ask me questions, and I can answer them. So the foundation was founded in 2002, about 20 years ago, and in India, in the name of National Entrepreneur Network, when colleges and other institutions were trying to figure out what is entrepreneurship and what how do you promote entrepreneurship in engineering and management schools? That was the situation. So we helped them to create e-clubs, incubators, teach students what is entrepreneurship. That's what we did in those years. And was it ready? So in 2022, we worked with our educational partners and trained about 35,000 students across the globe on what is entrepreneurship and how do you develop entrepreneurship skills. That was one of the initiatives. We worked in India with about 800 startups, early stage MVP stage startups, and trained them through a 14-week program, a one-semester program, and took them to investors. Got 75 of them got funded. That's what we did in 2022. That's our credibility. So we have kind of started a journey, and our objective is to get to 100,000 students across the developing world knowing how to start up. And probably about 8,000 startups in these economies that we work on introduction to investors and getting funded. That's what our goals are. We are a very number-driven company. We run our foundation like a software company. So numbers are very important, and we strive to get to those numbers. Okay. No, that's not required. That's not required. So I go up and down and press this to. Just to point. Okay. Okay, so accelerating economic development in emerging economies through large-scale family-sustaining jobs. That's what we do. So we work with, through entrepreneurship and small and medium-scale industries, helping small and medium-scale industries to grow. So we provide help to them. So by growing them, they create more jobs is the hope. That's the second part. And then changing lives through upskilling. So we have another, division which provides skills to students in school, high schools, degree holders, diploma holders, the labor force in the bottom part of the pyramid. We provide them skills that we think can take them to the next level in their journey. And then scaling the impact through networks of partnerships. So we don't do all this ourselves. We partner with institutions like XLRI or an XL University or a VIT kind of institutions. We work with 45 of them, and that's how we do. So these are the four initiatives that we have. The global opportunity is all about skilling. Vadvani Entrepreneur is all about helping students understand how to start up and then help the startups to get funded. Advantage is all about helping the SMEs. And then Institute of Technology and Policy is an attempt to teach the impact and use of technology to bureaucrats, the IS officers, and the secretaries in the government system. And then digital public health is a new initiative that we are starting in the US to get a platform where everybody in the world will have access to their medical records and medical health that they need. Now, that's our credibility. So that's what we do. That's why you guys call me. This is the pitch. I don't know whether it went in or not. So now let's understand what we call as ecosystem. What do we mean in India, right? So to understand that, you need to place the startups in this kind of a continuum as they start and grow to become a large enterprise. So we, in the foundation, we look at the startups in these stages, these, you know, six, seven stages. So we look at an idea. So students like you or a school going child can come up with an idea and then start researching with an idea. That's where an entrepreneurship or a startup starts. The idea gets to a market validated concept where you have built something, built an MVP. We call it MVP, which is minimum viable product. We have built that, shown to some customers, and they've seen it and said, yeah, this might work. This might solve some problem that I have. That's the market validated concept. And then you launch the product into the market. Then you get the early traction. Then you get to an operational stability, and then you get to the growth stage. And then if you successfully grow, you would probably get to a Series A funding kind of a stage. So we have 3 programs within the foundation. One is for the Ignite, which is to ignite the idea of a startup within students or professionals. That's what we aim for. And then Liftoff is for startups who have built an MVP, they have a committed team, and they want to grow that startup into a larger stage. So that's where we take that startup to investors. We prepare them to pitch to an investor, take them to an investor, and get funded at a pre-seed kind of, or seed or a pre-seed kind of a stage. That's where so at the end of that program, they will get a runway for a year, hopefully, and then they continue their journey. And if they successfully, show traction in terms of acquiring customers and revenue, they would then go and raise a fund from commercial funding, a Series A or beyond, and then they could think about an IPO at a later stage. So when you get to the growth and an SME or a larger scale, say 5 to 25 crores of rupees kind of a revenue stage, we have a program which is Wadhwani Foundation's boot camps. That's where we help the SMEs to grow and employ more people. So that's what we do. So now looking at the ecosystem, you would, if you start from the top, at the early stages, you have government grants for an MVP kind of a stage company. You have 5 people, you've spent about a year or 2, you have something, you have the early customers, you look for government grants, which is a very critical element in the early part of any startup's journey in India. There's enough and more funding available there. Then there are incubators. So you can present your concepts to an incubator, they would take you in, they would agree to take you and grow you, right? So there are IMA's incubator, which is the CIAE sign from IIT Bombay, and many Vellore Institute of Technology has an incubator. So that's the very critical element that we will come back to it when we talk about what business schools can do in the ecosystem. Then there are accelerators. Acceleration happens once you have a Series A, and then beyond that, if you want to grow, you go to the accelerator. There are, accelerators like Surge and GSF. And then there are state startup missions. Just like incubators, there are each state these days, like, start in UP or start in Bihar. Government has a start in Uttarakhand has a start, which we work very closely with. So they have these incubation programs where you can register and they get access to the government needs or software needs of or any other needs of the government. You can get customers there. Then there are corporates who help startups to grow. Then there are service providers who do, your pitch clinics or investment banking kind of help to startups for a fee, so that you can go to them, present your case, and then they would help you to get funded. So there are agencies like that. And then there are ecosystem enablers like us. So we don't put our money in. We don't run an incubator in that structure, but we work with all these enablers to help the startups. That's what we do. And then there are investors and VCs, which is the, the holy grail of this whole game, is to convince people like him on Calcutta Ventures that your idea is really worthwhile. So our objective is to convince him. You take your idea, put you through a government grant system or an incubator system, or if XLRI decides to start an incubator here, go through that development process and go through the access to the experts like Saurabh, who when he comes here, you can go to him and ask for help, and then get to a stage and convince Calcutta Ventures is the whole game. Does it make sense? Right. Now, talking about risk, right? So if I go back to my boss, Ramesh's experience, the first 3 startups, he didn't have a great success, right? So it was average success. But the last one, which he exited in 2000, was a textbook case. So 1991, he started, right? 1993, he raised 3 rounds of funding, right? 1996, he went public in NASDAQ, right? And 2000 weeks before the dot-com bust, he exited. But to get to that kind of timing and understanding of the technology space, he had to spend, 3, 4 other startups to get to that stage, is my reading. He didn't tell me, right? So you have to, the perseverance, there is risk everywhere. If he didn't exit at the right time, post 2000 dot-com bust, many companies, including Cisco and Microsoft, everything kind of tanked to very low levels. They had to wait for 4 or 5 years to get back to where they were when the 2000, at the point of, so it's a lot of learning. And once you start, once you, reasonably successfully run the first venture, you will never work for anybody else. So that's the flip side of it. Any questions? No? So why now? So why is there such a hoopla about startups everywhere in India? Mohandas Pai is putting out annual reports with the status, and I read that and I become a number guy now. So she was commenting that I sound like Mohandas Pai when I speak, because I'm a very number-oriented person, and how many districts are there, how many business schools are there, how many graduates come out of it, how many engineering colleges, how many graduate, how many seats exit, how many, all those numbers are there. How many people are looking for jobs in India, how many are women, how many are men. All these numbers are very important in this game. So I've learned in the last year and a half. So next section is all about numbers, right? So we are the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the world, which is a big thing, right? We were nowhere in 2005 or 2006. So there's a bunch of data that we picked up from all kinds of sources, including DPIIT. So that DPIIT is a very important thing. It's a department for promotion of industry and internal trade. This is a new thing that the new government has set up. So you have to go register there to get any grant in India, right? So if you're a startup, you want grant, and there are about 84,000 startups who have registered, half of which registered in the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years, 40,000 new startups got registered as an official startup with a KST or whatever GST number that works, right? So there is a huge momentum in the market in India to start. There is eagerness to do it. And there is a lot of support to do that. And if you look at the funding number, we are the 3rd largest. 84,000 startups have employed about 8.6 lakhs of jobs. But we need to have about, 56 crores of jobs in India, out of which there are only 10 crores of salaried jobs. Right? So you can imagine 56 minus 10 is 46. So 46 crores of people in India work in unorganized or small, micro, medium sector. Right? So it's a huge problem. The job creation in India is a big problem. There's another statistic says that 40% of the people between 20 and 24 they don't have a job in India. And that 20 to 24 aged people in India out of 140 crore people is about 18%. So that puts 10 crores of people between the age of 20 and 24 in the job market. And anybody in any town or anywhere you go, you ask a 20-year-old or a person, do you want a job? I'm sure they will say, I would love a job, whether it's in a rural India, whether it's a woman or a man, right? So that's the problem we have. And you guys are the privileged lot. So you should create 10 jobs each, at least. That's why Ramesh taking his PhD from IIT Bombay several years ago in his, pitch, that's what he asked the students to do. You should take risk. But the take risk, which is in a very calculated manner, play the game theory and say, these are the 3 different outcomes that can happen, and cover your bases before you take the risk. Okay, so there are 18 listed internet companies today, 8.63 lakhs of jobs, blah, blah, blah. Right, so it's a very, very vibrant, large community or ecosystem out there, and you can actually go after I can give you an example. Recently, one of our startups from one of our partner cohorts got a fairly large funding. And the idea was to set up a chain of EV batteries, which is a very common idea, right? So when I was working in your hostel, I saw a lot of clothes hanging around. So you could go in with an idea that I'm going to set up a laundromat where you can wash and dry and take my clothes out, and build a model, a blue sky model where you do it in XLRI, go to NIT, Jamshedpur, go to the next camp and build a chain, and then show that one of them work and you're making money, or you will make money, right? And there's a business model. It's all about execution. I reviewed about 2,200 ideas in December, right? 1,400 of them coming from colleges, 800 of them coming from real startups. Before we present them to investors, we do a review. So, and there's a pattern, and you would see that pattern later in the slide. There are edtech startups, there are e-commerce startups, there are, B2B e-commerce, B2C e-commerce. These are the things that we are hearing in the news, and that's the ideas that you come up with. And there are a lot of hostel type ideas, food in the hostel, books, recycling books in the campus, laundromat in the campus, food in the campus, home cooked food for students in the campus. All these ideas are workable ideas. Whether you have 3 people or 4 people who are committed to it, whether you have the guts to start it and perseverance to stay with it, is what matters, is in my view. So out of this 2,200, a large chunk of them are very great ideas. And one of them that I was talking about, which raised about 2 crores of funding, is a run-of-the-mill idea. People want to sell and service EV scooters and bikes all over India. I've seen tens of such ideas. But this team, went to the room, looked in the eye and said, we can do it. And this is the proof. That's all it takes to get funding. There's more money running behind great ideas in India today than great ideas. It is, startup investment has emerged as a asset class in India. It's not going to go away. Whether Adani happens or, worst thing happens in the war, anything happens, it's going to stay. We will recover from those situations and it's going to be there. So you have to have the perseverance. They say that I met somebody, I don't know whether she's here, a marathon runner here, right? Marathon is all about mind game. It's not your leg muscles that is, taking you those 26 miles or 26 kilometers. It's your mind. If you tell your mind that you're weak, you're done enough, or it's too difficult for me. I have run marathons. I've run Paris Marathon, and after 5th kilometer, there is nothing. You don't feel your limbs. It depends on people, but 5-6 kilometers, you just run, and next day things happen. And it's not while you're running; it's next day that things happen. So this is something like that. You just have to have the perseverance to go. So this is the number of unicorns that have come up, and you will see that there's different sectors. We have probably Saurabh's coming up to that soon, into the real estate technology, to e-commerce. So e-commerce, financial technology, enterprise technology are the big areas. This is important. So you need to start in the context where you're living, right? So most of the people are starting in these areas: consumer services, media entertainment, education technology, logistics. So those, 6, 7, bulk of the unicorns have happened there, which means a large number of startups have happened there, because it is selection process, right? So it is important for you to understand the context in which you are thinking about starting up, and then place yourself, understand your competition, and see what is going to be your approach to success. You can hardly read this, so we'll just skip these numbers. So it's essentially talking about where these things these startups has happened, how many of them got funded, and which areas. So you will see, Bangalore being the largest of this ecosystem, and then Delhi and other areas. But the key message is it's right across. The funding is happening right across these sectors, right across these regions. So there's no regional preference or sectoral preference when it comes to him writing the check. It's all about your idea and your commitment and what you have shown that can work. So these are the grants that I was talking about, right? So there are so many schemes in India now that government is giving for idea stage to prototype to MVP to early traction to up to early traction. Beyond that, you get the grant, you get to a traction. Traction means you have started gaining customers and revenue. Once you get there, you can, the next stage is raising a commercial funding, which will be typically $500,000, 4 crores kind of money. If you get to that stage, you have kind of arrived, right? So there's enough money there. You just need to understand these schemes and apply for it and get it. Incubator would help you. Your own research would help you. How are we doing on time? Okay. Okay, now comes the role of business schools, right? So essentially 3 points in 5 slides. What business schools can do in this space is give the orientation of what is happening in the startup world, in the economies that they work. What are the areas and what are the success stories? Get some, startup promoters like them and come and speak to them how they built their story. What was a difficult time? And what are the best practices that they have? And teach that to the students. I think it can be taught, though your director didn't believe you can be taught. I wasn't, a good speaker. I don't know that I can speak even now. I could, what I could do was to code. Backend software development was my game. Now I'm forced to come and speak to you guys. So I'm trying. This is my first event like this. So I think it can be taught. So, yeah, I think it can be taught. You can put an effort to it. And, one of the things Saurabh said is that you have to have a team of, it's called MET, minimum viable team, right? A hustler, a hacker, and a hipster. A hacker would build your solution, right? A hustler will go and get you customers. And hipster is the guy who would think how I can become a billion-dollar company. So you need those three people, and each time each one role feels down, the other has to pep them up. And that's what Saurabh was telling me when we drove down from Ranchi, that there has been several times when you feel that, why are you doing all this? But you need to stay with it. Okay, so role of the business schools. There are three of them. So get the students an orientation of startup and what it would take, the ecosystem details. And second, set up an incubator, right? And help the startups in the region, right? If you go, and then the students here or the teachers can easily help them. So most of the startups in the early stages, they need somebody to talk to, right? How do I expand this? And you speak to 5 people, you will get some ideas, you implement it, you move to the next step, right? So that's an important thing. Many of the successful, education schools like ICFA Business School in Hyderabad, or a KL University in Vijayawada, or VIT in Vellore. So they all have incubators, and it is not for just students. So you call for applications from the surrounding areas, get them into the college, get them into your incubators, give them space if you need, give them technology assistance, management expertise, and try to make them successful. And students will get that, CIE is an extreme example. The IMA's incubation program has now started to help other smart city incubators like indoor smart city incubators. So you can grow into a stage where you become the hub and you can spoke it out to the nearby business schools. And there are 5,000 business schools, 766 districts. You can divide and arrive at how many business schools per district exist in India, and how many micro, small, and medium industries and startups exist, and you can provide a huge role in helping them grow and create one additional job. You're talking about 12 crore jobs. So that's the second. And third is, there is a big lack of teaching material for startup teaching, or starting up, or entrepreneur education in India. We had to go and create our own cases 2 years ago. I'll speak about it. So we created cases, we created curated content, and created a course. And the same course we administered to students like you, who come up with ideas and apply these theory to their ideas, and real startups in incubators. The same 14-week course. The only difference is, in the college version, they have to submit something every month. And in the startup version, it's entirely up to the startup what they want to do. If they learn from this and come up with a pitch, and we review it, if it is presentable to investors, we present it, and they get funded. And we are a total non-profit organization. We don't take any money from anybody for all this that we do, right? It's a completely Section 8. We work for, the society, that's the orientation we have. So we help the teachers to learn. We have a faculty development program on how to teach this course. And incubators, they can, when they fund, they can take equity from the startups, but we don't take anything. It's all pro bono that we do. So what are the key gaps and challenges? Access to early stage funding is still a problem. I talked about the government funding part. The, Calcutta Ventures types are still not looking at very early stage startups that for obvious reasons. The failure rate is much higher, so they are not easily investing into it. Availability of experienced mentors. So many of you are very smart people coming out after 5 years experience, I hear, and you have gone through the theory. So you have the expertise to advise a, small startup which is trying to come up in Ranchi or in the areas nearby. So the expertise you have, so all you need to do is, and most of the problem in the world, I believe, can be solved from first principles, right? So you just understand the problem, apply your mind, read a bit about how others solve this problem, you can solve it. Or you can at least come with a solution which may not be the optimum solution, but then you don't have to get stuck with the problem. You can move forward and learn and continue to change, right? So which you can do as students. Go out to Jamshedpur and put out an ad saying that your innovation group or whatever that name is calling for applications to help students. So the second year PGDM, GM students are offering free help. See what happens. That's what we did when we started. And then go-to-market strategy is a big problem. How do we get to our customers? What are the different methods? Do I call up? I have only 3 people. How do I, keep sitting and calling up people? How do you get to these people? So people who have done it can certainly help. Then you have, access to global markets. So if once you get, say, 10 customers, the next worry is, can I go global? And most of the solutions, like whether it's laundromat or, campus books, resell, can I go global, right? Access to global markets, human capital. How do I get my hustler, hacker, and hipster into my team? Where do I go to get these people, right? And then corporate governance, and then overall technology, connectivity. And the other big problem in India is if you, go to a business school or a technology school, spend 5, 6, 7 lakhs or more to learn what you learn, and go home and say, we have decided to start up. It's not taken very well by, Indian middle class families. That's a big problem. And these incubators do give a solution. They can go to the incubator and sit there and work. So at least they're going out and doing something, as opposed to sitting in their room in front of the computer and doing something which the parents don't understand, right? So that I believe in Indian context, it's a huge service. They have a registered company, and they are going to this incubator and doing something. The next part is providing the students the knowledge that it takes, similar to what we talked about, and, housing the incubator part, bridge between the startups and potential investors. If you have an incubator, typically you tend to develop an ecosystem of incubators and experts around you, and they can be leveraged by the startups within your incubator. An alumni network. If you look at IMA alumni network, probably Saurabh has put in his money there. So they have come up with a fund which invests in such startups. And my understanding is that it has begun to grow, which means these, alumni put their money in, formed a fund, started funding startups, and now that fund is growing, which means there's no more contribution required in probably about 6, 7 years. Yeah, this is within the campus. So students can also have, like the IIT Bombay e-cell that he was talking about, you can give a opportunity for the groups to try out their ideas and see where it goes. So what do? We as in Wadhwani Entrepreneur, NEN as a National Entrepreneur Network, what do we do? So we have two programs, NEN Ignite for the college students and NEN Liftoff for startups in incubators. So what is the Ignite program? It's a credit-bearing course, 3 credits. You go through these concepts of problem definition, problem worth solving, building your MVP, building a business plan, and defining your growth path, and submitting a deck for a global competition is what we do on a platform. We have a technology platform available. Every week, we delve into one of the 12 critical success elements of building a startup. And there are 3 sessions, 1 case study discussion. So we have built a series of case studies. So we come into the class and discuss the case. There's a master class by an expert like Saurabh at the middle of the week. And there is a apply this theory to your laundromat idea and present it to your colleagues and mentors. So we provide mentor network. So this is what we do. It's all driven on the system. Our partner institutions bring in students and they go through a 3-credit program like this. The next one, the same program, the same content, a case-based learning for real startups in incubators. We call for application from startups with incubators. We have 35 of them, 800 of them went through the journey this year. We plan to double it next year. Here, the idea is they will go through the same cases, same methodologies, apply them to their idea, come up with a pitch, present it to an investor. Calcutta Ventures signs a check is the idea. And our course is very simple. Week 1, problem identification and opportunity. It's built on a 100x VC startup named Deshi, which is a footwear company out of Bombay. They came with a bunch of products and they are trying to sell it. And then week 2 is customer and market. So each of these cases are handcrafted for the problem, for the area that we have going to discuss. And we, discuss this in a 12-week program, at the end of which the last one is funding strategy. We have built a case on 100x VC, which is the largest Indian early stage funding agency in India, Bombay based. They put their own money up to 30 lakhs in these early stage ideas. And that is what we do. Yes, come. Okay. So if you have any questions, I can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Warrior, for sharing your insights into the startup ecosystem. We'll now open the floor for question and answers. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask.
Go ahead.
Good morning, sir. My name is Suman from PGDM GM batch. And I just wanted to ask, with you funding so many startups, some startups are bound to fail. So how do you mitigate those risks?
So the whole game is that, right? So the startups when you are an angel investor or an early stage investor or 100x VC kind of investor, after investing, they would help the startups to become successful, but the success rate is low. Probably about the funded startup, 20-30% of them succeed to the next level and these investors can exit. The others will fail, but you will make money out of these 30%. So if you get in a year, if 100x VC invests in say 100 startups, if 2 of them goes on to become a $500 million company, they would have made money. That's all they need. So it's like a mutual fund kind of thing, or riskier than mutual fund, but a larger portfolio you build and you expect few of them to succeed.
But sir, we have read multiple reports that with so many unicorns coming up, this is kind of a bubble, and at some point it might burst.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is a bubble? Bubble is an unreasonable valuation of the underlying asset that the market drums up, right? So that unreasonable part, so the valuation may reduce, right? After the dot-com bust, many, Cisco, IBM, all these big names, Microsoft, the stocks tanked, but then they built it back up over the years. So these cycles of up and down will happen. It's part of life. So if you can time it, you can exit before the bubble bursts, but it's very difficult. So you have to live through it. That's the economic or market system that we live in.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the session. My name is Bharat, and I'm part of XLRI's General Management Program. I had a question regarding the work culture. We don't often discuss work culture when it comes to startup, and there are other examples wherein the big giants, they encourage their work culture as a standard across many other companies. And there has been a recent debate about the 18-hour work culture at certain companies. So do you see that in a country as India, where startups are picking up and it's more in trend than the, I guess in last 2 years, we have heard of this word as a commodity. It's so easygoing that everyone knows that what startup is now. The ecosystem is so well absorbed that people have started understanding it. So what is your thought on work culture from startups being adopted across the big giants rather than the other way?
So the culture is a big word, right? So my take from my work experience is, I define it as your understanding of, given a situation, how will the organization behave? In my mind, is the definition of the culture, right? So if you have a tough situation, right, you found a very serious flaw in the software on a Friday evening, right? There can be a culture. So you as an employee in the company know that, yeah, customer will live with it for Saturday, Sunday, we'll come on Monday and it'll get solved. That could be one culture. The other culture could be all hands are on deck, right? Customer happiness is the primary responsibility of the company. You need to fix it. Even if you have to work through, when I was a trainee in TCS, I remember we had a submission date and we as in a team spent about 3 days flat in the office as a trainee. This is a training program, right? So those are how you set these expectations and how do you create the excitement for the employees to get to that, live up to that culture or expectation from the customer or internally defines that. So if you get an employee who believes in it or who has accepted that that's the way we are, then there is no problem. If somebody says, I don't work on Saturday and Sunday, you have a problem. So how do you build that is people like Saurabh's problem. That culture, the right culture, right? So he went through 2 years of downturn. He didn't retrench anybody. I mean, think about the goodwill he would have gained from the workforce. They would die for him, right? So you have to demonstrate those values as leaders, as owners, to build a culture. Once you build the culture, now taking the startups culture, we as a foundation try to imbibe some of these startup culture because most of us came through the startup systems, working in several startup systems. right? So we are still small. We have 150 people across the globe. It's easy to, imbibe these values, but an IBM trying to do it is very difficult, right? So I'm not sure about whether there's a need for large companies to take on this kind of a culture. Maybe small pockets of projects you can, but company-wide, I'm not sure.
And in a recent subject called sustainability, we were discussing about externalities, wherein we spoke about positive outcomes and the negative outcomes. Whereas wherein the positive outcomes is more cash focused, the growth side of the company that is registered in your balance sheet, P&L. Whereas a negative outcomes is the most ignored part, wherein again the big giants are cursed for it, that they aren't paying much attention to, let's say, the soft side of it, the outcomes that are more ignored, wherein we are also moving towards ESG, wherein more and more companies are heading towards it. Do you think there is a dire need for it, or is it just a fad?
So sustainability, next week I'm supposed to go to IIT Bhubaneswar. They have called me for a discussion on sustainability, right? So it's a very complicated topic. There are three aspects to sustainability. One is economic sustainability, right? Can you, like what's happening with Adani or Byju's, you raise a lot of money in the interest of fast growth and acquiring more and more and more businesses, whether it is a sustainable model for the startup at all, right? So I believe that you have to remember what is your unit economics. When you sell a unit of whatever, what is the economic? How much money are you spending to sell it? Amazon's, took years to get to a positive unit economics at an order level, at an average order level. So that's one aspect of sustainability, right? Whether are you growing sustainably? If you're not, your investors will be very unhappy eventually. And the whole, thing can crash down. The second is the social aspect of it. And the third is the environmental aspect of it, right? I've read articles about if you calculate the economic value add, there's something called EVA, right? You must have studied something. So there is a theory that if you calculate the EVA rightly, the sustainability aspect is embedded in it. But I'm not an expert. I haven't studied enough, which I'll have to do in the next 1 week. That's my answer.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Warrior.
Right.
In the interest of time, we'll have to close the Q&A session here. Now, I would like to invite Professor Sarangi to give a vote of thanks to Mr. Warrior.
Not now, in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, when you'll be launching your journey, entrepreneurial journey, you would, I'm sure, look back at this moment and think, what a wonderful day that we spent by speaking to these wonderful, brilliant minds that we have here, and who definitely shall have ignited the spirit in you, should I say, the ability to self-actualize. And guess what? As a teacher, probably I may not feel very romantically inclined towards acquiring money, and money should not be defining your ambition in the journey. But journey is extremely important, and that it's a spiritual moment, frankly speaking. And I'm sure the successful entrepreneurs would attest to my statement here, that it's more than the destination. The journey is so important that you would realize what you could have been if you had not taken this risk. Otherwise, we would die and go to our grave without realizing who we could have been. And towards that, probably these wonderful souls would ignite all of us today. and realize what we could do beyond MBA, beyond XLRI. And I'm pretty sure you would be self-actualizing and realizing your own potential. And that's what probably Mr. Rajiv Warriors has done today by alerting and educating all of us about the wonderful work that his foundation is doing. And I'm pretty sure this is the future of our nation when we are trying to take a leap of faith into the Committee of Nations, where we'll be making sense to the world as Indians. And thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for coming here and spending the valuable currency that is time that you mentioned. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us would be connected to you in the days to come. And I'm very, very confident this is the beginning of a wonderful, wonderful relationship that you'll have with XLRI. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Professor Sunil Kumar Sarangi, Faculty General Management Area and co-convener of the Placement Cell General Management Program. Now, I would request Professor Sunil Sarangi to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Warrior. We also have Mr. Varun Gupta, founder, Bolt Audio, amongst us. So, Professor, if you could please present him with a bouquet. Thank you, Professor. Guys, now we will break for tea. I would request all the speakers to please proceed to the lounge area for the same. And my dear batchmates, you'll have to savor the tea right outside this room. So please be there. And when we get back, we have one more keynote address by Mr. Saurabh Garg, co-founder nobroker.com, followed by our founders panel discussion. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, after a much rejuvenating tea break. Our next speaker is Mr. Saurabh Garg, a true visionary and entrepreneurial leader, co-founder and chief business officer at nobrokers.com, India's first pro-tech unicorn, prop tech unicorn. The topic of this session is 2023 to startup or not to startup. At No Broker, he's responsible for devising and implementing innovative marketing strategies to make people aware about No Broker's unique zero brokerage proposition, and has been instrumental in achieving the lowest customer acquisition costs in the competitive Indian real estate sector. An alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIM Ahmedabad, Saurabh is also a serial entrepreneur. After spending almost 3 years with sales and marketing team at HUL, he took the entrepreneurial leap with Four Fountains De-Stress Spa, one of the select few from IIM Ahmedabad to leave a cushy job and start his own. In 2014, he co-founded nobroker.com, which is first of its kind C2C platform across the world to address the housing hunting hassles and huge intermediation costs faced by Indian home seekers. The platform has helped more than 1.6 crore Indians in their home search and has saved upwards of 8,500 crores INR in brokerage in the last 7 years. The platform is backed by marquee investors such as Tiger Global, General Atlantic, and Elevation Capital, among others, and has raised $361 million in funding to date. Saurabh's unique perspective on marketing has been instrumental in achieving a rapid scale at low costs in the sector, mired by huge marketing spending. His deep understanding of consumer behavior made him go further in consumer life cycle and very early in the startup journey. No Broker launched ancillary services throughout the No Broker home store, a one-stop shop for all home shifting needs. He additionally headed the strategic alliances businesses with real estate developers and corporates with the help of bringing both high quality supply and demand at low cost while generating additional revenue for company. And it is the first time that C2C businesses also had B2B players. Now I request Mr. Garg to deliver his address.
Showing green. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I had to wake you up on a Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Business school, not working? Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay, great. Yeah, but I hope I think it's a good training because some of you want to be an entrepreneur. So I don't think Saturday, Sundays would matter once you, okay, once you start your own venture. Great. So I think a lot of people asked me this question because 2022 was a very turbulent year for startups, for especially the tech startups, and you every day keep on hearing a lot of negative news. So a lot of people asked me whether this is the right time to start up or should we just take up a job. So I thought let me just try and give you my opinion about this time, whether it's a good time or not. So just some background. I'm sure that all of you know this. I think you can't see this, but this is NASDAQ. So in the last 1 year, NASDAQ fell by 35%, and so many companies which were listed on NASDAQ, tech startups which got listed, saw severe value loss. There are companies like Caravana, which saw almost 98% drop in the value. Everybody knows about Zoom, what happened with Zoom, Twilio, Peloton. These were all darlings at NASDAQ in the last couple of years, and they lost massive value. And what was the impact of this? That many investors who were investing in companies like this were under severe duress, right? I mean, a lot of you might have heard about Tiger losing majority value of their fund. The NAV came down by almost 52%. There's another Tiger offshoot called D1, which was also investing in India. They had leveraged to invest in startups, in high growth startups. And when you have and I'm sure many of you have done investment courses, so if you invest with leverage and companies' value falls, what happens? You just spiral down, right? So very difficult time. SoftBank, who was one of the biggest investors in India apart from Tiger, lost value, stopped investing for a while. So it was quite a difficult time for these funds. And then a new term came in, which at least I had not heard before this, called tech winter. So first time, I think in the last 12, 13 years, we started seeing that the investment being made in the startups is going down. There was a time when I think Q3 of last year when the funding went down drastically, and that's when people started saying that startup is very risky. So should I be doing startup, not doing a startup? So that's a question which I'll try and answer today. So I don't know how many of you in this room are thinking of starting up or are at least contemplating, exploring. I can see 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. There are many of you. That's great. So let me. I'm sure that many people would have told you this, but let me again ask you: do you know what is common between all these companies? Sorry? They started in a garage. Okay. Anything else? This is not the first idea. Okay. They failed and they revamped. Okay. So I think a lot of things which you're saying is correct, but what is common in between all these things, all these companies, is all of them started in a recession. Walt Disney, 1929, the greatest depression which we have seen ever not in our life, but ever in financial history. Microsoft, 1975, most turbulent time, very, very high inflation, very high interest rates, recessionary environment in the US. Airbnb, Ease My Trip, Policy Bazaar, 2008, just after GFC, right? The big crash which was there. So I think that's what you have to understand, that it's not only about great times, but a lot of great companies are formed, are conceptualized, are launched in very, very tough environment. So yeah, so all of them started in a recession. That's one. Second, I think all of them are solving a real problem. So I think that's also very, very critical, because just think of Great Depression in 1929, US or across the world. What did they need? Everything was so pessimistic. They needed some entertainment. Walt Disney came in. Microsoft came in 1975, started building, softwares for PC, because Bill Gates was a visionary. He knew that there is going to be a PC at every desk, and he started building that. Airbnb, again, people wanted to save money when they wanted to travel. I mean, so solving real problem, understanding the customer really, really well, what the customer required. And something which I've highlighted in red, and I think a lot of people have spoken about this, even professors spoke about this, Rajiv spoke about this, perseverance. And I would say perseverance is one, but what I really want to say, it is being optimistic to the extent of irrationality. That is what you require to run a startup. You can run a lot of modeling on Excel. You can do scenario analysis. You can do a lot of things which business school tells you. But unless you believe more than anyone else that your startup is going to succeed, I think it's very difficult for it to succeed. You should be the person who is passionate, extremely optimistic, that people should say, boss, aap irrational baat kar rahe ho. Ye to ho hi nahi sakta. That is the kind of belief you should have in your startup. I think that's very important. So I think I'll talk about this more, but let me just tell you a little bit about how No Broker started, give you some glimpse of that. So I started my career with Unilever, and it's a great job. I really liked working there, and but I was very clear from my school days that I want to run my own company. I want to run a startup. So I quit my job in 2007. So at that time, Unilever used to provide a company accommodation. So they had provided me a beautiful 2-bedroom house in Bandra West in Bombay, extremely nice house, very, very comfortable. And I had to leave that house. I think it was the biggest regret I have of quitting Unilever. That is such a nice house. And that was the first time when I had to work with a broker. Because till that time, I was in school, then I went to IIT, IIM, everything was provided. My family, college, so never worked with a broker before that. So this was the first time when I came across a creature called broker. So पहले तो मतलब सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज की तब तक फंडिंग कुछ नहीं मिला था. It was पैसे थे नहीं. 3 years जॉब किया था. There was very little savings which I had. So I said कि बॉस ब्रोकर को तो पैसे नहीं दूंगा. I'll find a house directly by going to the owner. I'll find an owner. And that time there were a lot of these platforms which existed, 99 acres, Magic Bricks, OLX, Quicker. So I said, yes, a platform se mil hi jayega. Why should it be tough? Owners also would be there. I searched for 2 months. I met 3 owners. Kyunki koi owner nahi tha platform pe. There were only 3 owners, and the houses were so bad that from whatever minimum savings I had to pay 42,000 rupees as brokerage. कोई option ही नहीं था. There was no option at all. 42,000 I paid as brokerage in 2007 when my monthly salary was, I think, 50,000 rupees. And anyway, वो salary भी बंद हो गई थी. So that hurt. But you know, it didn't end there. Any of you from Bombay here have lived in Bombay? So I'm sure that most of you would know, and if you've rented a house in Bombay, that if you take a house on rent through a broker, when you're renewing it next year, the broker comes back and demands brokerage again. मतलब इससे वाहियात चीज तो मैंने सुनी नहीं है. And इससे अच्छा business model भी कोई नहीं है, because it's an annuity business. आपने एक बार घर दिला दिया, पूरी जिंदगी आप बैठ के खाओ. So you know, the broker came back and said कि boss आपको ना 42,000 वापस देना है. मैंने कहा मुझे तो याद भी नहीं था कौन है वो. मैंने कहा आप हो कौन? He said sir मैंने आपको घर दिलाया था 11 महीने पहले. I said, but I am renewing with this doctor who's my landlord. We are both deciding mutually, and agreement we'll make. What are you doing here? So he said नहीं यहाँ का यही rule है. So that day itself I booked this domain name nobroker.in. मैंने कहा कि boss, millions of people like me are actually losing, you know, this much money and this ridiculous thing every day. This has to be solved. You know, so that's where this idea came from. And then I was busy with my first startup, but 2010 I actively started thinking that we need to solve that. And that time what happened, that a lot of these online companies like OLX, Quicker, they became more commonplace. People were selling things on OLX, people were selling things on Quicker and all that. So Flipkart was becoming bigger. So there was a comfort on doing things online. So I said, this is the right time to do it. So 2010 to 2013, I was looking for co-founders. I spoke to multiple people. Some came, went, all that happened. But ultimately, Akhil and Amit, these are my co-founders. Akhil is my junior from IIT Bombay. We used to live in the same hostel, same wing. He was my next door neighbor. Amit is my batchmate from IIM Ahmedabad, same dorm, same floor, next door neighbor. बहुत लोगों ने मेरे को बोला है तुम्हारी ना cooked up story लग रही है कि दोनों ही next door neighbor थे. But actually that's true. So I knew these guys for almost, we started in 2013, we started work, 2014 we launched. So I knew Akhil for 13 years. I knew Amit for 11 years. So had a huge trust and respect for each other. So these guys came in as my co-founders. And this is a little bit glimpse of how we looked at it. एक तरफ owner है, एक तरफ buyer tenant है, and बीच में there's a fat broker who's taking all the money from you. Do you know India, probably India and some other developing markets are the only markets where there is no certification to be a broker. Anybody can be a broker. You know, so example, if Rajiv has a contact of an owner, he can broker the deal, take the money and go. Nobody's stopping him to do that. He can take the money in cash also. There is no problem in doing it. Any other place in the world, you have to write an exam to become a broker. इंडिया में तो आप, I don't know, आपके यहाँ पे जैसा बहुत सारे कॉलेज के बाहर चाय वाले होते हैं, तो I don't know यहाँ पर है कि नहीं, बट चाय वाले भी ब्रोकर ही होते हैं. आप जाओ चाय वाले के यहाँ, पान वाले के, बोलेगा सर आपको घर चाहिए, हाँ मैं दिला देता हूँ. You know, that's the kind of service which exists in real estate industry. And all these platforms which are there, these are basically marketing platforms for brokers. Their revenue model is make money from brokers. You know, so we are the first one trying to do something different. So this is what No Broker is, connecting both of these guys directly without any intermediary. At the heart of it is our algorithm, which ensures that only genuine owner, tenant, buyer or seller can be there on the platform. No agent or no broker can do anything on the platform. And whatever a very good broker will do with the help of heuristics, our algorithms, we solve it through algorithms and AI. You know, for example, if you're looking for a house in, again, take example of Bombay. If you're looking for a house in, say, Bandra, and you say, okay, my 2 BHK, I want to buy, my budget is 2.5 crores. A good broker will tell you कि सर इतने में नहीं मिलेगा आपको. आप एक काम करिए, अगर आपका बजट इतना है तो आप अंधेरी चलिए. कि आप Santa Cruz East चलिए, right? Because in Bandra West, if you want to buy a 2 BHK, it will cost you 3.5-4 crores. You won't find it. So this is what a good broker will do because of what he has processed the information. The same information our algorithms process and provide the similar kind of things. This was the first website which we launched, March 1st, 2014. So first website we launched. Our logo is different from what we have now. So this logo I designed. So I'm not a designer. I don't understand anything about design. But there were only 3 people in the team, I, Akhil and Amit. So somebody had to design it. So I had no idea about colors also. So what I did was that you can see this red color and blue color. So I said, boss, Google and Facebook ने research करी होगी कुछ. तो Google Plus का color था red. वो वाला color लिया मैंने. और Facebook का color था blue. तो वो color लिया. मैंने कहा कि so I said, they would have done some work. So let me take those colors, and that's how this website came in. Now the website looks very different, and I'm sure you would have seen that. We were the first one actually who also used WhatsApp. So we also understood that a lot of owners, when they were listing the properties, what they used to do, they call the broker and say, okay, मेरी property आप करवा दो list, मतलब मेरी property आप बेच दो या rent करा दो. I'm sending the details and pictures on WhatsApp. So from day one, we had that system on the website. You can do exactly that because you wanted the minimum inertia for the owner to do anything. So first company that used WhatsApp for that. And now, of course, a lot of things happen on WhatsApp automatically. So we use WhatsApp bots. You can list your entire property on WhatsApp. You can take a lot of services on WhatsApp without any human intervention. So yeah, after doing some bit of thing, we thought we need money. So this business requires initial capital. I was just speaking with Deepthi also. So yes, we require, it's a consumer business. We require money. We can't bootstrap. We bootstrap for a year, but we need money. So we went to the VCs and पहला VC का response था कि broker तो अच्छे हैं. Lot of brokers are doing a lot of good things. हमें तो आज तक खराब broker मिला ही नहीं है. So my submission to that is so difficult for me to make them understand कि सर आप 1.5 लाख रुपए का रेंट का घर लेते हो, आप 5 करोड़ रुपए का घर खरीदते हो, आपको तो अच्छे ब्रोकर मिलेंगे ही, बट मैं 40,000 रुपए का लेता हूँ एंड normal population of India rents 15,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees. Look at their problem. But I think it was so difficult because many investors just think from where they are and their experience. But the top 1% of India is actually better than Europe in terms of service standards. And they have to understand they are not the TG for this. It's the remaining 98% of people who were going through an extremely bad experience. So that's the first response. Second, there's a time when whenever we go to a VC, they say, "Acha, हाँ ये China में भी चल रहा है, US में भी चल रहा है." Right, right. Looks good. When we went, they said, China, US कहीं पे भी नहीं है ऐसा तो. Why will this work in India? Now again, making them understand that the structurally different. China, US has organized real estate market, certified brokers, chains of brokers, a very, very different kind of a setup. You need registration to become a broker. So very difficult again to make them understand. Why has no one else done this? मतलब इसका तो अब आंसर ही नहीं है कोई मेरे पास कि किसी ने नहीं किया. How can I tell you why no one else has done this? But I think thing was that no one else has done this because C2C is so difficult to make. B2C model is simpler because in a marketplace, one side at least you have a business, you have a broker. One side you have a customer, easier. But when both sides become customer, it's so much more difficult to scale, to build. And I think that was something which took us time. So I think it took us almost 6-7 months to convince people that, yes, this is something which makes sense. Finally, we were able to convince 3 VCs. And I clearly remember it was a Tuesday when they said that tomorrow we are going to give you a term sheet. And we were extremely happy. All 3 of us went in the evening and celebrated with beer. Said, "Ki boss, ab to ho gayi funding. Now we are ready to show the world what we are doing." Next morning, this was the news. And I think all of you have done a housing.com case study also, right? So this news came in the, this is a front page news in all the newspapers next day morning. And the environment changed drastically. Suddenly, somebody told me, real estate market itna bada nahi hai. I said, I mean, what are you talking about? Do you even, by the way, do you guys know how much brokerage is paid every year in India? Any guess? In real estate? Any guesses? You can just, sorry? 1,000 crores, okay? Please speak louder. 50,000 crores, yeah. Okay, sorry? 500 crores. You know what's the number? It's 1,40,000 crores. $19 billion. That is paid as brokerage by people like you and me every year in India. Every year. $19 billion. I mean, it's mind-boggling. You know, so yeah, so one wasn't the real estate market is not big. Somebody told me, change your name. We don't like name no broker. We'll fund you. I said, there is no reason for me to exist if I change my name. This name is why I exist. The business exists because I believe I don't want to pay brokerage. Of course, a lot of people said real estate is very difficult. In India, nobody has made money, which is true also. I mean, even now, very few companies make money in real estate in India. But I think that's where, when I talked about perseverance, that comes in play. That is very important. So we kept on doing what we were doing. Housing had raised $90 million. In the next 3 months, they spent $20 million in marketing. I don't know if any of you have seen that campaign. There's a campaign called Look Up, which was there. $20 million spent in 3 months. काफी सारे उनके ads में नाम भी नहीं था housing.com का. सिर्फ Look Up. Somebody has to guess what brand is advertising. So, and you know, and हमारा marketing budget था 1,000 rupees per day. And we were in Bombay and Bangalore, 2 cities, and we had more listings than housing.com on the platform with 1,000 rupees per day. You know, that's the power of latent need and word of mouth. So in those 2 cities, we had more listings. So finally, you know, we got SAF Partners, who's now called Elevation, to come in. They invested $3 million in us. And until the time money didn't come in, हमने beer ही नहीं पी. We'll wait till the money comes in the bank. So, but I think that was it's a great moment for us that finally somebody believed. And you know, trust me, you just need one believer. That is the most important thing. And that's my first, you know, thing to you, that, you know, right now in the Indian ecosystem, there is $16 billion which is there, which is to be invested in the next few years. $16 billion. All the funds have raised enormous money. These are the 5 names which I've written in no particular order. But these 5 names itself have raised more than $4 billion to invest. And there would be, I'm sure, you know, Rajiv would know those numbers. I'm sure there'll be at least few hundred small funds, few hundred incubators who are willing to put money. There are funds like Calcutta Ventures, which he's already there. I'm sure he'll speak to you guys. And there are at least few thousand angels who are putting money. You know, people like me who are investing money in startups. I actively invest in startups. So I'm sure that, and any one of you, trust me, any one of you, if you go into the market with a great idea, extremely fundable. You know, this background which you have makes you extremely fundable. If you have an idea which is great, and you just need one person who believes in you and gives you that money. So that is one thing which I want to leave you with. I'll complete No Broker's story, and then I'll talk more about other things after that. Suppose this, we started scaling up, and we rented a small office in Bangalore. We rented a bungalow because somebody asked Rajiv about culture, right? Startup culture and all that stuff. So we said, bungalow is better. Teams can work together. You engage better. You can build companies' DNA because these early employees, right? These early 10, 20, 30 employees, they actually build the DNA of the company. They build what is the culture of the company. So that's what we decided. Started building a product, started marketing, started scaling up. And but I think we were also quite naive that we didn't realize that this can also happen. So on a September, I remember that I saw that 50, 60 people are walking and coming towards our office. I thought it's some religious procession, something is going, but they were actually brokers who came and who broke into our office, started breaking things, laptop tod rahe, ye kar rahe, employees, they're hurting employees and all. And we were seriously not ready for this. We were very, very naive. We didn't have even one security person. We didn't have even one CCTV camera. So काफी धुलाई हुई हम लोगों की उस दिन. मतलब just in time because we called police after that, so थोड़ा बचे. But this was crazy, and then when in hindsight when we think of this, we should have been ready because Uber, Ola के साथ हो चुका था ये, people breaking cars and all that. So multiple startups had seen this. We probably didn't anticipate, and it was our mistake. So I think this happened, and then we had to vacate that office the same day. There was no other option, and for almost 2-3 months till we could find another office, we were working like this, and that too in 2 different offices. Half team in one office, half team in another office, because one startup said कि मेरे पास ना एक hall खाली है, तो उसमें आके आप, but furniture नहीं है. We brought mattresses from our homes and started working on this. And one of our investors is a Japanese investor called Teru Sato. He's an entrepreneur himself. He started his company, listed on Japanese exchange, then started investing. So he came to this office and he said to me, Saurabh, this is good for you. I was like, क्या बोल रहे हो आप? मतलब हम लोग ऐसे काम कर रहे हैं and हमारी कोई गलती भी नहीं है, and you're saying it's good for you. He said, trust me, this is going to be good for you. And I didn't believe that time, but this event did 2-3 things for us. One, the team very strongly started believing that they're doing something right. They started believing that they're creating an impact. That's why there was a reaction. And secondly, I think the team came very, very close together. So most of the people who were there at that time working with us, almost 85-90% of them are still with the company after 8 years. I think 2015, 7-8 years, yes. They're still there with the company. And this sense of that we're doing something right, we're doing something which is big, I think that was enormous. So that really helped. Then we moved to our current office. This is the current office. This is not on Google Maps. So brokers can't find us. हमारा कोई signage नहीं है. And we love this line from this movie Khosla Ka Ghosla. आप party है या broker? हमने वो. So now we work here, and over a period of time, we started as a real estate transaction platform connecting owners, tenants, buyers, sellers, and over a period of time, our customers only told us कि हाँ property मिल गई है, but उसके बाद का rent agreement कौन कराएगा, sale deed कौन कराएगा, okay, packers, movers, cleaning, home interiors, home loans. So now we are a one-stop shop. Everything you can do at NoBroker itself. In the entire journey, you can do at NoBroker. So we have a financial services. I mean, core is real estate, of course, transaction, but financial services, home services, and we have a platform called NoBroker Hood, which is a society management and visitor management software, which is also part of a company. So everything comes in one place. This slightly old. We now do around 8 lakh transactions every year. Every year, 8 lakh people find a home through us, whether to rent or buy, without paying any brokerage. it's around $10 billion GMV roughly every year. Last year, we saved 4,000 crores in brokerage in last 1 year. But abhi that number is 1,40,000 crores. So we are just very, very small, right? These are our investors. We are India's first prop tech unicorn. These are investors. We have raised $360 million, roughly 2,800, roughly 3,000 crores from our investors. Yeah. So that's broadly about No Broker story. Let me talk about, so the first thing which I talked about is that you need one believer and perseverance. So I wanted to talk about this, the No Broker story, because I wanted to talk about perseverance. Even so, we had first setback where investors backed out, second setback where brokers attacked. COVID was a setback for everyone, right? So, but I think multiple setbacks keep on happening when we're doing something, and I think at that time that perseverance and irrational optimism is what you require, because I'm telling you, if you're doing a startup, at least 4 or 5 times in a year, you will feel कि यार छोड़ देते हैं, क्योंकि क्या इतना tension क्यों करना है? Because look, there's a very sexy and glamorous side of startup that, it's $1 billion company and we're doing great. We are serving so many customers, 8 lakh customers, but there are also the negative side, because you will keep finding obstacles in doing things. And the only way to do is that just believe in what you're doing, be rationally optimist and overcome those. I think that's extremely, extremely important. So that's the second thing which I want to tell. Third, about this question, 2023 slowdown, is it a good time or not? I think I have some things on that. In my opinion, this is a very great opportunity to start a business. Just think of 2020-21. Anybody who is going to the market is getting funded. If you're from XLRI, if you're from IIT, if you're IIM, you go to a startup, you go to a venture capitalist and say, okay, I want to do this. ठीक है, काम करते हैं, इसको 3 million दे देते हैं, इसको 5 million दे देते हैं. We'll think about it later. And that is what was more or less happening. So many people are getting funded who should have not got funded. Now what is happening? It's less competition. There are lesser people in the market. Lesser people means what? There is lower CACs. When I look at CPMs, so do you have a digital marketing course which you guys have done? So you understand CPMs, right? Cost per impression. Yeah. So cost per impressions, they had increased drastically in the last 2 years, because so many advertisers are there in the market bidding for the same inventory, bidding for the same keywords. Google search had become expensive, display had become expensive, YouTube ads become expensive. Everything was expensive. Now it is becoming slightly rational slowly. So the cost for marketing is coming down. Cost for acquiring customers are coming down. Manpower cost. पिछले 2 साल में क्या हो रहा था कि मैंने किसी को ऑफर दिया, वो 2 ऑफर और लेके आता था. आपने मेरे को X का ऑफर दिया, मेरे पास तो 1.3x का ऑफर है. Will you match it? I mean, I didn't. In most cases, I didn't. So that was also a problem, because so much exuberance mean that salary costs had hit through the roof. Getting a good person was becoming so very difficult. Now again, that is becoming better. So you can build better teams at lower cost, which really helps. And of course, with service providers, whoever it is, whether it is your rental providers, multiple people with whom you work with, you can negotiate better deals. Your software providers, you can get better deals. So I really think this is the best time. If any of you are thinking of starting up, this is a really, really good time. You can do it in a more rational way. You will not compete with irrational people in the market. Cost will be lower. It's actually great. Also look at the opportunity which is there. I mean, there might be a temporary slowdown, but look, where India is going to be in the next 25 years. And I'm sure all of us have heard so many people talking about it. And you already know some of these, and I'm sure that you might have read in your economics class or newspapers, but by 2050, India is going to be a 30 trillion economy. Just for context, I put where US is right now. US today is 23. In the next 25 years, we'll be at 30. We'll be the second biggest economy in the world. Only China would be bigger than us, right? There'll be 20% share of the economy, the global economy. I mean, this is huge. Young population. I think by 2050 also our median population is going to be in between 30 and 40, 35 and 40. Still young, right? Per capita income $16,000. Today it is $2,500. It's going to become 5-6 times. So opportunity is immense. It is across sectors. It is whether you think of technology, whether you think of non-technology, everywhere there is going to be opportunity. It is up to you whether you want to capitalize that or not. But I think next 25 years is what happened in US post World War II, or what happened in China post 1980s. That is what is going to happen in India in the next 20-25 years. This is the best time to be in India and do business. So again, I'll just reiterate some of the things. Good teams with good idea will never have problem raising money, because there is so much money available in the market. There is so much money which is there. Less competition, huge opportunities. Perseverance and optimism, I think that is a key. You need to have that. Also, I mean, and I spoke about this briefly yesterday when I was discussing with some of the students and Rajiv and Professor. Look, your background, this degree which you've got from XLRI, that gives you a blank check to take risks. What is the worst that can happen? Just think of that. What is the worst? You'll do a startup, you'll fail at it. 2 years later, you'll actually be doing a very good job. Even if you fail at a startup, because of your background, even then you'll be doing a great job. You know, that is the worst which can happen. And in my opinion, not doing a startup at this time is actually a bigger risk. If you have a great idea, if you have a team which you think is very strong, I think that's a bigger risk. What is risk? Risk is basically permanent loss of capital. You know, I'm sure in your investment management you would have learned that risk is permanent loss of capital. So if you don't do a startup, what risk are you taking? The risk of not achieving what you can achieve with the startup. I mean, just think of if Zerodha, Nitin Kamath and Nikhil Kamath, if they had not started Zerodha, they were working in a call center. What would they have achieved by doing that job? Just think of Bill Gates if he had not started Microsoft. I think that is a risk. If you have something which you really solidly believe is a very strong consumer insight, very strong problem which you can solve, and you can build a team to solve that, not doing it, in my opinion, is the biggest risk of your life. Thank you.
I would like to open the floor for Q&A. Can we get a mic to Manish? Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, Saurabh. Thanks for taking out your time to come and spend the entire day with us. So my question is based on my usage of NoBroker actually. So I've used it in two ways. One is where I ended up actually paying the premium plan because that property wasn't going on rent very easily. While the other one I knew, all I had to do was just list it and it would go on immediately, and that's exactly what happened. So my question is, how do you monetize a customer like the second category I told, whose property just went on?
Yeah.
Of course, I understand you've built a lot of extra services which people do use, but my point is that I would still be renting my houses in the future as well. Do you think it will be a good idea to monetize me, where probably you get a lifetime plan or something on that lines that I keep paying, or you think you should not monetize that category and rather concentrate to give him or the after services which you all are doing?
No, I think a good question. So we always keep on debating that, but I think we always want to stick true to our philosophy that when we are not doing too much effort, why should we charge you? I mean, it should be an open platform. If you are able to take phone calls from the tenant or a buyer and speak to them, arrange everything, we're okay, do it for free. 95% of our customers do it for free. It's okay with us. Of course, you'll end up taking either a rent agreement plan through us, or as an owner, you might want to paint your house sometime and you can take that thing. Or as you become busier, you may say, okay, boss, I can't do that. Why don't you have to give me a paid plan? I'll use that thing. I think that's our philosophy. So we are okay with 95% people using it for free. It's completely okay with us.
Next.
Hi, Saurabh. So before my question, I have a small incident that I don't like to narrate, which happened with Notebook.com. So in 2019, I was house hunting because I had recently switched my jobs and I was in search of a new location, new competition. So I found someone on Notebook.com, and when I met that guy, he was actually a broker posing as a house owner. And he then took me to some other location, another flat, which was not mentioned online anywhere.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking that flat because it was very, very good. So I'm sure you will be aware of all these incidents, and how do you plan to tackle all these?
So these incidents happen very, very rarely. So we know that 99.99% of the times it is accurate, and in most cases, when people like you who see this also end up reporting that okay, this is a broker.
Yes.
So in most cases we are able to eliminate that. But I agree, 1 in 5,000 these cases happen. We are again building more technology to overcome that. Probably over a period of time, we'll be able to weed it out.
Thank you.
Hi, Saurabh. This is Tarun here. First of all, thank you for motivating us to be irrationally optimistic. So my question is, you started with an idea which nobody had implemented earlier. So my question is, for a startup to be successful, what is the most important thing? Is it the idea, or is it the implementation? Because there are a few companies which have implemented the same idea but have failed. But other startups have implemented it and have been successful. So what is your take on this?
I think I will say there are two things which are more important. One, having the right consumer insight. So which is basically the idea, right? What is the idea? But secondly is implementation. I think an implementation supersedes the idea any day. So when we started, I think 6 months later, there's another company which started called Grabhouse, who was trying to do something very similar. Look, but we understood that this is something which is a two-sided marketplace, C2C marketplace, has to be built slowly, has to go in depth. So even today, we are in 6 cities: Bombay, Bangalore, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi, NCR. 2015, Grabhouse was in 50 cities. They don't exist now. So I think it's the implementation and execution. That is the most important thing. Many people will have ideas, but if they don't implement it well, they will not succeed. So that's why I'm saying it's not only about the idea, it's also about the team which is there and the understanding of the customer.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one question online from the chat.
Yeah.
So there is a question from Gopal Verma. He says, should we go for investment at initial stage? But don't you think that it will cost more equity to dilute?
Look, it depends on the idea. There'll be some ideas which might not require investment at initial stage and you can bootstrap and scale it up. But there are some ideas which would require investment at initial stage. So I think it will very much depend on what the idea is. I mean, and look at again, taking example of Zerodha, they've not taken investment even till now, right? They're completely bootstrapped. So you don't need to. But I think that environment when Zerodha came up with that idea was very different. And today, if somebody wants to start a stock trading company, I think they need money because it's so much more competitive right now. There are 5-6 players, hyper competitive, and if you start without raising capital, it's going to be extremely tough.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for an insightful session. Now, I would like to call Professor Sarangi to give a vote of thanks.
Somebody I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to realize this too was a gift. And when I was listening to you, Mr. Garg, I was thinking of the fact that the creature you mentioned as coming and stopping by your door to give you a box full of darkness. I'm sure this has turned out to be a gift after many years. And this is actually at the core of entrepreneurship. In fact, you started with a pain and you turned into an opportunity. You made a lot of money for the nation, for yourself, for the team that is working with you. And in the process, you became a hero, and hero for all of us to learn from. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And thanks for this wonderful conversation that you had. And this is for me as a teacher, this is the most spiritual aspect of entrepreneurial journey. And that's exactly what I think all of us are looking forward to hearing from all of you. And in the process, I'm sure it'll be making a tremendous mark in our hearts, in our minds, to the extent that they'll be feeling so very guilty of pursuing a job, but not starting a startup, which I'm sure they'll be doing. And guess what? As a teacher and as a co-convener of placement, this is also, it serves my self-interest because I have to work less for hunting for a job for them. And this is brilliant. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll have a terrific remainder of the day. Thanks a lot.
So I would like to request Professor Sarangi to give a token of appreciation to Mr. Garg. So sorry to bother you again, but we would like to present the bouquet to Ms. Deepthi Tandon, founder of coffeemug.ai. Thank you. And so we would also request you and stay back. I would like to call upon Mr. Vishal Chaudhary, co-founder of ZWork, to please come on stage to receive the bouquet. And I would also request Mr. Arijit Bhattacharya, founder of Virtual Infocom, World Leader Summit, Entrepreneur Face in Co-Innovative Ventures, to please come on stage and receive the bouquet.
Thank you, Professor Sarangi. We'll keep troubling you as in class. So now it's time to move on and invite our first panel of the day, where we'll be talking about the Indian startup ecosystem at length and how does the roadmap look like for Indian startups to create a global impact. 4 panelists will discuss their paths to forming impactful companies, their early careers, the business challenges they have faced, the mindset one needs to have for entrepreneurship, and how to stay on top of all the business trends that are constantly emerging and evolving. Our first panelist is Mr. Pratyush Nalla, founding member of Business. He is a BTech graduate from IIT Bombay in mechanical engineering who started off his career with ITC Limited as an assistant manager at Process Excellence and Energy Cell, where he spearheaded the development of low-cost technologies for energy efficiency in tobacco drying for 10,000 plus farmers and institutionalized a team of managers and field extension members for the design, development, and scale-up of technological solutions across 3 operating locations. In his brief stint of 8 months, he successfully led 10 projects across operational, procurement, and supply chain functions, and established quality metrics across the value chain, guiding and mentoring 50 plus managers in the process. Soon after, he co-founded Off Business, a new age B2B commerce and fintech startup that provides smart procurement and smart financing solutions to SMEs through its tech-enabled platform. Currently at Off Business, he is leading lending at Oxizo and working towards adding value to the SME ecosystem in the country by leveraging technology to bring in innovations across commerce, credit, logistics, and information flow. We welcome Mr. Pratyush Nalla to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Dilpreet. Now I would like to call our next panelist, Mr. Vishal Chaudhary, the co-founder of ZWork. Vishal has a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemical engineering from IIT Kharagpur, and he hails from Patna, Bihar. He started off his career with ITC Limited, where he was a project manager responsible for conceptualizing and executing capacity augmentation and quality projects for new businesses with a focus on CAPEX or OPEX costs. Mr. Chaudhary is also a certified professional in supply management and has built extensive experience in supply chain during his stint at Revijo and ITC Limited in 2018. He co-founded ZWork, a universal manufacturing network, which is transforming the world in traditional manufacturing by helping customers reduce costs, optimize suppliers, and execute production faster. Thank you, sir.
Next, we have with us today Mr. Avelo Roy, MD and Startup Mentor, Kolkata Ventures, and co-founder and governing body member, Bengal Business Council. A tech entrepreneur, investor, 4 times TEDx speaker, and TV host, who started his first company at the age of 19 around his patent pending technology while still studying at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He built it to a multi-dollar valuation by the age of 22 and thereafter established the Krishna House, Krishna Lunch, Krishna Talk projects in Chicago for spreading the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. He continued to build businesses in the US and India with multi-million dollars worth of products and services, ranging from consumer electronics, artificial intelligence systems, healthcare process automation, and graphical password applications. His mentorship through Kolkata Ventures in the past 3 years has resulted in 400 plus revenue generating startups, 2 exits, and 10 crore in funds raised. As the great grandson of Ms. Sarojini Naidu, Mr. Roy continues the legacy forward by tirelessly serving the Indian youth through entrepreneurship education using lean startup methodology and management education using the principles of Bhagavad Gita. He is an influential youth icon with a monthly reach of 200,000 youth over social media platforms. Mr. Roy has a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology and has worked with companies like Narrative Science, Inner Workings, Pongworks, etc. in various capacities. Adding one more feather to his cap, he has also served as a guest lecturer in Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management, and his alma mater, Illinois Institute of Technology, in the areas of entrepreneurship and marketing. It is a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Please join the stage.
Our last panelist is Mr. Varun Gupta, co-founder of Bolt Audio. Varun, born and brought up in Delhi, is an alumni of DPS RK Puram, post which he went on to do his computer science engineering from IP University. He then worked with Yahoo Research in Barcelona, but came back to pursue his master's in business administration from IMI, which is one of the top 10 B schools in the country. He, being passionate about entrepreneurship, was the only student in his batch to opt out of the summer placements to pursue his startup as the official summer internship program. He ran the startup for 14 months before finally joining the industry in 2014. He served in two prestigious organizations like Business World and Snapdeal, and then started his startup called Second in 2015. Later, he pivoted to another startup called Brand Hawkers and ran it successfully for 2 years before he launched Bolt Audios in 2017. Fast track to 5 years later, today, Bolt is the second largest audio company in India, selling a headphone every 7 seconds. The brand takes immense pride in its product design and R&D, and over 1.5 million verified customer ratings with over 4 stars on Amazon and Flipkart in its testimony to the same. Mr. Gupta, please do the honors and join us on stage. And finally, I would like to introduce our moderator for the panel, Mr. Saurabh Kothari. Revolutionizing in education by blending it with technology with multiple edtech startups with a student base of 5 lakh plus subscribers and currently one of the biggest online platforms for MBA prep and skill development programs. He has done his graduation from Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies and is also an ex-analyst at EY. Currently, he's a student with us and he's in our class, Mr. Saurabh Kothari.
Thank you so much, Dilpreet, for introducing me, and thank you all the panelists for being a part of this conversation. We are looking forward to have an insightful conversation about startups and entrepreneurship, which is a very talked topic in the last few years. If I talk about the facts, we are the third largest nation when it comes to startups. We are having 100 plus unicorns in the country, and we are expecting more than 250 unicorns by 2025. But if I talk about the reality from the heart of an entrepreneur, I believe this is one of the most riskier thing when we take a leap of faith and we start something on our own. The numbers are very promising. The facts look very fascinating. But when as an entrepreneur, we start our journey, you people have built great organizations from unicorns to bootstrap organizations, from Avelu, who has done a great, fantastic work from the childhood days. How difficult is it to be an entrepreneur? This is the first question, because as MBA aspirants, as budding entrepreneurs, this is the most important question, because as Sarangi sir mentioned, we come here with the insurance policy of a hefty package. What motivates us as an entrepreneur to leave that comfort space and try to solve a problem to create an impact at a bigger scale? So I would like to start one by one to understand your viewpoint. Maybe Pratish, you can start.
Okay, so you asked about how difficult it is or how tough it is to be an entrepreneur. I would say, if you have the right motive in your mind, nothing is, tough or difficult. You need to have just the right motive and notion in your mind. For example, when we were students and we wanted to get into IIT, getting into IIT or NIT was a very tough thing to do, right? But you could get into that if you had an aim, ambition, goal, and you have a definitive path, you create a path towards it and you work towards it, and then you reach. Even if you don't reach, you have certain other plans, because while going through that journey, you actually created a certain set of skills which would actually enable you to do something else or do something better going forward, right? So that is simply put into entrepreneurship also. It's a journey where you get to know what the risks are and what the benefits, what the merits are, and then you create a path around it. If you succeed in it, well and good. If you don't succeed in it, you have created a good set of skill base which will actually help you in something or the other going forward. So more than the journey being tough or difficult, it's more of having the right notion in your mind, whether you are in the correct position to start off and think in that direction. It's more of a mind game rather than the journey being tough or difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, is it tough? Of course, it's very tough because when you start something, you think that you know everything, and you know how things will work out, but you don't. To be honest, I mean, we started as a SaaS company, eventually became a manufacturing company. Because when we started SaaS, there were enough examples in the world how a SaaS company works, right? But it didn't play out for us, and we had to pivot to manufacturing. And see, one is that you don't know the market too well, and second is that market itself is changing. So that further complicates the whole problem. But thankfully today, with the thriving ecosystem that it is today, the new age, I mean, the entrepreneurs of today have enough experience to lean back on in the way of by way of mentors and your college seniors who would have built companies. So that way there is some advantage of starting today because of this rich. There's in a way a playbook available to the new entrepreneurs today on what does the first year look like and what are the things to look out for. And it varies, it's not just market, it's talent, it's capital, it's multiple things. It's a mixture of multiple things. So yeah, I mean, summary is yes, it's tough, but that's how it will always be.
For me, I have been a college entrepreneur. I started at the age of 19. So it was in the US. So there was no visa for entrepreneurs. I had to figure out my own arrangement. On top of that, I was not a good student. On top of my parents, got separated. My dad stopped paying for my education. So to figure out my tuition, I had to go to classes and actually pass. And I was starting my startup. Now, what I was telling Saurabh with the other room was actually, for me, it was not a luxury. Oh, I want to be a startup. It was a necessity. I had a gun to my head because I knew with my GPA, I couldn't get a job. And I wouldn't be able to do anything because I'm only built for entrepreneurship. This is the only thing I can do. So I hacked the system and got the H1B for my own company for myself, right? And at 27 months, there's a STEM extension period within which I had to do this. So I had a timer that within 27 months, either I can be financially viable and get my H1B, live in the US, build my company, grow it, or die, right? So guess what I did? And thereafter, my first company took 3 years to go from zero to revenue. Guess what my second company was? 21 days, zero to revenue. Until date, 8 businesses I've built, sold 3 of them. Each one of them, zero to revenue, 30 days. Unless it's that simplified, I don't do it. Because I want to know there is validation that I'm putting my money and time into. So it's difficult. It is mad. It's crazy, right? But the point is, it's a lot of fun. I also retired at the age of 29 after my third exit and started doing good things, teaching Bhagavad Gita, investing in startups, educating, guest faculty, this, that, touring around the world, being happy, right? I pay people to build their businesses rather than me being a CEO, taking care of salary, this, that, this, that. By 29, I'm done. Now I work 6 hours a day having fun. So this is the good part of it. Yes, it's difficult, but the good part is you can be who you want to be and enjoy life, king size.
That's interesting.
So as rightly mentioned by my co-panelists, entrepreneurship for everybody, let us clarify, you might see a lot of unicorns, some very established entrepreneurs, an amazing panel that you see across the table and have spoken in the last couple of hours as well. Entrepreneurship is not at all glamorous. In the first few years, it is going to be very difficult. You will be all by yourself. You might see some of your batchmates who take very fancy placements, and then you see they're making huge amount of money and you're not. You have to compromise on your personal life, quality, travel. I personally have been through all of that. I passed out of my B school. After a couple of jobs, I moved to my startups. And of course, initially, you might have a sense of FOMO that, my batchmates are doing so well. And of course, startups will take time. It will not scale up overnight. So you might see that, you're not doing so well. But I traveled in sleeper class and trains when I used to travel for my work. When I started my startup, I put in all my monies and my savings from the first couple of jobs into my startup. And then monies that started drying up. But of course, sooner or later, I had 3 failed startups before Bolt happened, and this finally scaled up. So it will take time. You will have failures. Maybe your first startup doesn't work well. Maybe your second doesn't work well. But if you have the perseverance, and you will make it big. Once, of course, as Avelu mentioned, once it starts doing well, then you can choose the life of your size. All 4 of us have the privilege of being to a campus like an XLRI and being on the visiting guest faculty of other campuses, flying anywhere in the world, traveling, reading, and more importantly, investing into yourself and learning. Because of course, once you get into the journey of entrepreneurship, unlike a typical job, you have much more smarter people than you around, where they will be teaching you, and you have so much to learn from your competition, and so much to learn from your seniors, your mentors. But when you start the journey of entrepreneurship, you're all alone and all by yourself. So to invest into learning, to learn by the hard way, and to have your own learning curve is, of course, initially a very difficult journey. But of course, if it works out, it's, in simple words, it's a high risk, high reward game. If it works out, the rewards are much higher than any other journey.
Thank you so much for this wonderful insights on the introduction of entrepreneurship. And I believe this is a story for most of the entrepreneurs, because when we start, and being an entrepreneur myself, and when I created the channel, there were times when I was getting 1 view or 2 view on my videos. But one thing which distinguishes all the entrepreneurs is that they choose to keep going. They never give up. But when, as an entrepreneur, we are building something, and when this entrepreneur bug hit us, that we have to create something on our own, how to find that big idea? Because most of the times, whenever we talk about the MBA sprint, we talk among classmates as well, there's a question, what is the next big problem we can solve? And what I learned from my experience is that it's never about the idea. It's always about the implementation part. So being so successful entrepreneurs, you have created multiple organizations, getting into that big space. How did you narrow down to that one idea? Like you said, Vishal, that you started as a SaaS company. What was the turning moment when you decided, okay, now let's move to contract manufacturing? Because SaaS and contract manufacturing, I don't think they are related anyhow. And similarly, we will discuss more on this.
Yeah. So for us, what happened when we built our product screens, and we went and met a lot of engineering companies. We went and met L&Ts and the Doosan's of the world, and the smaller companies also. And everyone was very excited. Yeah, our customer set would be the procurement managers in these companies, and we'd meet them, and they'll be very excited. Yeah, this is what I've been thinking for the last 10 years. It's good you guys have come and build this. That kind of conversation, and that kicked us more. That we are really onto something. But when it came to those customers buying or subscribing to those softwares, the decision making was drawn forever. G was one of the customers, very excited about the product, but our IT team sits out of Switzerland. You need to go through the corporate IT, and that approval will take 1 year, and we didn't have the gas to last for a year doing nothing, wait for approvals. So, but when we were talking to a bunch of these, we spoke to a large set of customers. What we realized, all of them, what they were looking for is suppliers near their project sites, suppliers who have capacity available when they need it, at the price point at which they need it. This would come up constantly in all the conversations that, this is great. Does it also help me find a supplier in Guwahati? I'm doing a project there. This is something that, because we heard it so many times in most of the conversation, that this is something we picked on. That, maybe the underlying problem for the customer here is identifying the supplier at the right place, right capacity, right price point, right geography, etc. And that is what we caught on to. And and that's when we pivoted, that whilst we'll keep pursuing our SaaS dreams, of course, building a SaaS company takes a fairly large amount of time. We pivoted to this, and yeah, that was the first pivot, but it didn't end there. So we helped the customer A identify a supplier B. Okay, you go to supplier B, he meets all the criteria. Why don't you go work with him? We charge a commission from supplier. Within the first few months, we realized those suppliers were not performing well, and then customers would come back and say that, I don't think you properly scan the supplier. You got me into trouble. Now I have so much worth of goods. I have so much of liquidated damages, delay penalties from my customer, et cetera, which I have to pass on to you. All those kind of conversations started. And that's where the second pivot happened. That will not just be a classified, will not just be a matchmaker. What we'll actually do is we'll take the responsibility of delivering your project. So we'll take the order in our name. We'll go and spot the supplier and we'll get it executed. We'll project manage the whole thing. And which means our margin gets built into the price that we give to the customer. And that's what we are doing today. So, it's not about one pivot, two pivot. I mean, you probably have to undergo a number of pivots to hit the right spot to actually solve what the customer needs. And yeah, so that's how.
That's interesting because as an entrepreneur, you have to keep pivoting a lot of things, because what happens sometimes that one idea may work, but at the same time, if I talk about Pratyush as well, I was having a conversation last night and he told that we were doing one business going well. And suddenly they decided, okay, let's separate Oxiso, build 2 unicorns out of one. So Pratyush, how did your thought process come into picture that let's differentiate both the companies, make 2 unicorns? Because even I believe like when you are building such big company growing in the growing phase, it is difficult to manage that one baby and you decided to have another one.
Yeah. So see, any startup goes through the most critical phase of pivot where they try to understand as to what idea will actually work out within the market. Okay, so you will start off with some notion that, this is the kind of idea which I have and I'll go and implement it into the market. But the need of the customer might be completely opposite to that, right? So you keep tweaking your product again and again, and then you come to a pivot that this is what I want to do. So that is what exactly happened in off business also. So, we started off as a B2B consumable supply business where we were supplying safety shoes, paints to SMEs. And then we realized that that's a very bad business to be in because, we were losing money left, right, center, right? And then we got into steel as a commodity. And that is where we saw our first pivot that, we can get into a commerce, commodity-driven commerce where we can make money as well as run business profitably. And while we were doing that, we realized, the inherent need of the SME is to buy these commodities on credit. And that is when we started Oxiso. Now, as and when we keep on building the business and, we have this philosophy within ourselves, and we were discussing with other panelists also, and I can relate it to that. So for example, agar aap traffic mein ja rahe ho, right? And there's a lot of traffic and you see a gap, you barge into there, right? So that is what we do. We see a gap, we barge into there. We see a gap in credit, we barged into credit and we try to make something big out there. We see some kind of opportunity, we barge in there, right? So that is how, all our products as well as Oxiso and off business came into picture. And we keep on seeking, finding opportunities as to where to grow further. For example, we found out an opportunity during the COVID times that because the cash flow was very high in the business, right? Because there were so many VCs and Ps funding startups. So you are loaded with cash, right? And our business model is not that very cash heavy business because we do not spend on marketing. So still we raised a lot of funds, and raising of those funds was because we saw an opportunity that, hey, there is so much money in the market and there are so many SMEs who wanted an exit for 30, 40 years, and those SMEs are very, very profitable businesses. And if we go and acquire those SMEs and become a massive aggregator of those SMEs, we'll build a big business. So that is how we are culture wise, that if we see a gap, we just barge in there and try to make a big business out of there. With respect to separating of business and Oxiso also, we realized that these two companies are very standalone in themselves, and their product offerings are very wide. We saw that if we keep them together, we'll be limiting the size of market which we could capture. And so again, we saw a gap that we could barge in there, so we separated those two companies so that we can capture a larger market.
And that's a wonderful feat that both the companies are unicorns now. So I believe that demands a huge applause as well. And we're wishing you the best for the same. Coming to the similar lines, Avello, I would like to ask that you said that you started a first company at 19 and now you have retired as well. You took the exit. I believe that is the time when we are about to start our career. How difficult it was to start a company at 19 when probably you were not even aware of all the entrepreneurship terms and everything. You're doing something on your own and then just learned it the hard way. And adding to the similar lines, because we have Vishal and Pratyush who are building, Varun is building a company. How easy it is to exit from the brand you created?
But the biggest issue is the knowledge factor. You know, being a kid in college, you hardly know your subjects. So what to speak of running a company, organization, project management, you don't know this. You never worked in a corporate environment. So that was the biggest thing. For me, then there was legal, figuring out the compliance aspects. So a lot of knowledge barriers. So one thing I taught myself was, Velo, learn to say, I don't know, I want to know. Don't pretend to be an all-knower. So I was very humble. Just be like, hey, I don't know this. I might be stupid, but will you please help me? Asking a professor to connect me to somebody, to a lawyer, to a this, to a that. And that has been, even today, when I came back to India, one of the things in US is you don't speak in acronyms. In India, everything is acronyms. PGDM, this, that. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I would always be like, I don't know. Will you please tell me? Will you please teach me? So that attitude is very, very important in terms of getting over these barriers. Every time there's a brick wall, you hit the brick wall with connecting with people who know. So mentors or industry experts or people who have done that before you. Like when I was going to China for the first time for manufacturing, again, as a kid, 20, 21 years old, I had no idea about China. There was this huge manufacturing fest that was happening with 5,000 manufacturers. So one of my mentors, Joe Bourne, he has been manufacturing with China for 30 years. So I said, Joe, what should I look for? A 5-minute phone call with Joe. And he told me, look for this, look for that. This is where they're going to screw you. This is what they're not going to tell you. You should ask these questions, boom, 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 and you're done. I got referred by Texas Instruments to this massive Chinese manufacturer in Shenzhen. I go in there, they send me a Mercedes limo, and I come out, and there's the chairman of the company. He's personally there. Says, Avello Roy, welcome. And he looks at me and said, where is Avello Roy? I said, it's me. He's like, you're like my daughter. I'm like, well, and he was kind of discounting me, like, oh, what a waste for this guy, right? I walked into his office and I was asking him the right questions that Joe taught me. And what I saw was slowly, his eyes were lighting up and he's like, this guy knows what he's doing. In fact, he sealed the deal that very day. He took a hit on me. So he told me, you don't have to pay the whole manufacturing cost. We'll take it on credit. You pay only this much and we'll make you successful. And they did. So the point is, that's the biggest thing. You have the ego. What if they think I'm stupid? Well, when you realize you're stupid, you don't know, then sky is your limit. You can get help from whoever you want. Don't suffer alone. Don't struggle alone. Get it from experts. There are so-called mentors out there who have never done anything, only read books, and they're very good at motivational speaking, YouTubing, and all of that. Go to people who have actually done it, who can tell you this is the path, these are the hacks, these are the shortcuts, and this is how you succeed. That's the biggest challenge today because everybody is an influencer. Everybody is on Instagram, right? So you have to be very careful, look through if they really have done what they say they have done, and that way you know who to get guidance from. So that's in a nutshell. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and how difficult is it to exit?
Oh, exit, yeah. So again, being in US, it was very helpful because my professors taught me, Avello, don't get attached to the company, get attached to the product and your market. Everything else will move, right? The market is most important. So there has been times when investors have told me, do this, do that, but the market is saying something else. I'll go with the market. So being in that situation, it was never the case where my grandchildren will be running my company, like we think in India, right? So I was trained that way. So when we were doing well and we got to a point where we were a threat for some big companies, we were like, okay. And because we were backed by a nice university in a Chicago-like place, Obama was president, I was on the White House panel for entrepreneurship education. I had a very massive network where I knew who could be, a potential acquirer, and network and talking and eventually closing the deal and like done and dusted. Although I'll tell you, my first exit was very difficult. There's a certain company that came and told me, so it was a physical product company. It was like an Apple Watch, 10 years before Apple Watch, in the form of a necklace for little girls to connect in the physical world. They could be friends online. So MySpace just went down, Facebook came in, everybody was scared about social media. So this behemoth company tells us, you launch your product, we're going to pay people to throw them off the shelves, break them, crack them, and all the big box stores, they won't carry your products. Or you can take this few $1 million and get out, give us a patent, give us rights, and we'll do what we want with it. Being kids, we're like, you know what, a few $1 million is not bad. So let's just let's get out and build something else. And that's what we did. So that was a very difficult thing. Again, a gun to your head, in a brutal way. It was a hostile takeover in one sense. But once we got how this whole process works, then one after another, there were okay stories, failures, but then last couple of them were successful and we exited. So the point is, attachment is not to continuing this company, oh, this is my baby and all of that. It's a product in the market that we get attached to. And once it's ready, it's grown up, let it go to college and you enjoy retirement.
That's a different viewpoint on entrepreneurship altogether. Because sometimes when we build something, we get too emotionally attached to that business that we are not able to see the different perspective on the same. Varun, adding to the same question, and because we generally talk about a lot of unicorns and yours is a brand which is a bootstrap brand, and staying in a market which is already competitive, where competitors are raising a lot of funds, how difficult is it when you bootstrap? Because whenever we are planning to start something on our own, we are generally scared from where we will get the funding. And there are times like in the last couple of years when we are talking about funding winter as well. But being a bootstrap startups, taking inspiration from companies like Zerodha, Zoho, who have created big without raising any funds, how difficult was it for you to enter in a competitive landscape and surviving at the same time without raising any funds?
Sure. So, of course, you will find a lot of startups around you in any space, given that India is such a large population and there are millions of startups around. But you have to know your business. You have to know your core value proposition. And of course, it is good to have $1 billion valuation, and who doesn't love to run a unicorn? But if you do not have investors right now, you need to focus on the core unit economics. The idea is that if the business is, as one of my core panelists said, that if it is not economically sustainable, then forget about the other two levels of sustainability. It will not sustain. So we have to worry about the unit economics, that how are we building a business? Is my product or service going to make me money? And if you are worrying about that, and if you're focusing on the right problems, you will be able to scale it up. So in our case, we knew that we are building a product. We knew how or why is it different in terms of the product quality, in terms of the design, in terms of the price point and positioning. And then we stuck onto it for the next 5 years. And today we've been able to build a considerable brand. We still bootstrapped, but we're still profitable, because from day one, the focus was on unit economics, that we have to make sure that we are frugal in our innovation and frugal in our manufacturing. And we, of course, through the journey, pivoted in multiple scenarios where we launched multiple products, new categories, pivoted to make in India, now make in Bolt, that we now manufacture by ourselves. But there was always focus on unit economics and profitability. And if you focus on the right things, all the other things will start falling into shape.
That is interesting, because I believe a lot of among us as well are using your products and they are amazingly fantastic. Coming to a tough question, and I'm fortunate enough to have all of you who are running profitable startups, being unicorns, you're posting continuous profits. Oxizo, Off Business are one of the unicorns in a country who are profitable. Zetwork recently has posted a profitable, hefty profits. I want to understand this thing, that 5 years before we were talking about the funding saga. We wanted to raise funds. We wanted to become a unicorn, no matter whether we are profitable or no matter whether we have any business model or not. We just had to bring some traction. Do you think this phenomenon is getting changed now? The investors are looking to that perspective, whether you can build something which is profitable, or still as a founder you go by. So how difficult is it to manage the growth as well as the profitability together?
So this was, I think, not 5-6 years back. This was last year itself, or last year itself, when funds were being poured into any and every company and any and every idea out there. And
That is why, I heard someone ask, is this a bubble or underlying asset ka value bahut zyada hai kya karke? You come up with such questions when you suddenly see a spike and so many number of unicorns coming up. And what exactly different happened in the last 2 years which is why so many unicorns are coming up. So that's a question to be kept aside. I won't answer that question whether it's a bubble or not. But coming to your question of growth and profitability, any business should have this at its core, that it should be profitable while going forward. Okay. See, we do not believe in the concept of, the business will eventually make money. Because when will that eventually come? No one knows, right? So we do not believe in that concept. We believe in the concept that if you're running a business, make money and make money right now, right? If you want to raise money, either, look at the traditional businesses. Where do they raise money? They raise money to either do capex, to buy, machines or land kharidna or factory banana. Those are the traditional businesses, right? Or, you have a profitable business and you want to market your product even further. That is where you raise more money, right? So at the heart right now, all the, what we see is all, the investors, they are coming back to the core principles and fundamentals of running a business, which is unit economics kaisa hai, and what is the size of the market, and whether your business is profitable, what is the bottom line, and not so much looking into the top line of the company, but if the bottom line is healthy or not. And true credits to actually Varun for building, a profitable bootstrapped company. You hardly see like a few startups out there which are, running profitably as well as bootstrapped. Like one of my batchmates from IITB, so he started his company called Minimalist, right? And that's also a bootstrapped company, and he recently featured in Forbes 30 under 30. But we knew that the kind of business which he's entering into, that's not a very big business. It's a small market. But what he understood was, if I'm starting over here, I'll start this business to make money. I will not lose money at any point of time. Okay. So that is the mindset which everyone should have, I think, while starting up. And it's not about raising the big bucks to achieve a great valuation. You can have a very profitable business and keep that money for you, and you will earn much more, even if your company is $1 billion company or not, right?
Great. So coming to same thing, Vishal, how do you bring that vision of bringing profitability? Because when you are growing initially as a SaaS brand or as a contract manufacturing, and when you think of expanding, you have to invest and put in a lot of funds. So when is that mindset of a founder should enter that, okay, now let's focus on profitability as well. It is not just about growth, because so how to balance both the things on this?
Yeah, so it's to a founder, it's never like a switch that in the first year I'll not make money, or suddenly then the switch goes on and you want to become it. I mean, yeah, I mean, we've seen that in movies and in series where there's a lot of investor pressure and the founder says, no, now I have to work on profitability. No, it doesn't work like that. Profitability is there from day one, and VC money is no answer to a bad business model. Will never be an answer to a bad business model. And we had been focused on profitability from day one. We didn't generate profits in the year one, but there was a clear path on what all we need to do in year one to achieve a certain milestone in year two with profits. So that milestone was always there from the time that we started. And if I reflect, a lot of it also came because of our past experiences where we had worked. For example, I worked at ITC, heavily cash rich company. My other founders had worked at ITC. I had worked at Rivigo. My other founders had worked at other startups also. And we had sort of seen it from very close what building a good business or what potentially building a bad business looks like. And hence, when we started ZWork, from day one, we were very clear on building a profitable enterprise. And we didn't generate profit in year one for reasons which were intentional, because we didn't have a product in year one, but there was a clear focus on profitability, and we started demonstrating it from year two. So it wasn't like a switch which flipped in year two or year three or something like that.
Great. So this is a very important perspective on this, and I would like to understand from you, because you have seen the both sides of the coin, being a startup founder to investor. do you think that very soon we are going to talk about the cockroach startups and not unicorn startups?
I mean, we have always seen, I'm from East India, I'm from Kolkata, and there is not much investment happens besides Kolkata Ventures, except for us, there is nobody really there who invests. And so in East India, there are a lot of startups, even in Northeast, that are profitable, that are doing hundreds of crores and completely bootstrapped. And they are cockroach startups, and they have not only survived but thrived the pandemic. They've actually grown 300 to 1700% during the pandemic, just by aligning to the needs of the pandemic. So it's not a new thing of cockroach startup. That is what we see in East India, to be honest. This whole idea about burning investors' money and traveling business class is more of the happy parts of India, the Bangalore, the Gurgaon, the Pune, and the Mumbai, but not where we belong in East India. So cockroach startups have thrived and have grown, and I think there is a balance that is required. See, in the US, I saw the same thing. There was the same kind of turbulence, from the dot-com bubble burst, and people kind of, okay, this is not okay to just write checks to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And the maturity came in the investors. So we are seeing this, what you call the funding winter or whatever. It's not a winter, it's a maturity, that quality over quantity. It's not just throw money at anybody and everybody. Now we have the metrics. Now we know, we are educated to know what works, what doesn't work. And based on that, investors will make a better decision, thereby less burning, less job losses, and less waste of time and resources. So it's just a balance. You don't want to be on this side too much, that side too much. Now there are certain companies you cannot build without enough money, like a Tesla. If you want to build a car, electric vehicle in India, you and I can't build it unless we have a few hundred crores to start with, at least, right? But then if you want to build anything like a SaaS, zero money investment, just get started with 3 co-founders and you're done. Right? And you can bootstrap or you can raise money whenever you're ready. So it's not like this or that. You cannot fit it in a box. Depends which part of India you are in, depends what kind of business, what kind of market, what kind of product or service.
So that is a wonderful point, because I believe that this unicorn facade, like just to raise fund to build a unicorn, is more of a fascinating thing. But I believe now the shift is happening where the investors are also focusing a lot on whether you can build a sustainable business or not.
I want to add something more, a real story I'll tell you. There was a company that we sold to Paytm, that we invested in, sold it to Paytm. And in the newspapers, it mentioned something like $30 million. It's not true at all. But none of us opened our mouth because we were like, hey, it's a good thing, it's good marketing. So it's okay. So the media sometimes says a lot of things that are not true. One of my friends in Bangalore, I won't name his company, he raised $25 million saying it's an AI startup. It was not. It was an AI startup, intern intelligence. He had an army of interns manipulating data on the back end. With that, he was proving that this actually works, showed it to the investors. They invested $25 million. Now he has people who can actually build AI. Right? So media also has a lot of part. We think unicorn, but not necessarily all of that is true. You just want to get to that point because then doors open up, opportunities open up, people trust you more, and all of that happens.
Correct. So Varun, on the similar lines, because as budding entrepreneurs, and sometimes we think that we want to start something on our own. And when I was starting up, and one of my mentors told me that if you want to start up, there are 3 basic rules for that. One is it should be independent of time. The second one was it should be independent of space. And the third one is it should be independent of you. And that's how you can build a wonderful business. So coming to that, like as budding entrepreneurs, how can we get sure of our ideas? Because every day, a lot of my friends, our colleagues get popped up with thousands of ideas. Which one to narrow down? Like when you were thinking of something and you were planning to get into bold. So as a budding entrepreneur, how should we consider of which idea to work on and how to evaluate that idea?
So there are multiple schools of thought on how to build or pick up an idea. As Saurabh had mentioned, it was an experiential problem that he'd come across. Or it could be something, there's one school that says, figure out something that you're very passionate about. Let's say passionate about travel, music, photography, or tech. Second, figure out what you're good at, which is, let's say, am I good at marketing, creating network, I'm writing code, I'm good at writing code, and then marry the two and build a final product or a service. Then there's another school of thought wherein, let's say, you educated B school grads can figure out a gap in the market, as Pratyush mentioned that, you're driving and steering and you figure out there's a gap and you read about it. So of course, irrespective of the different type of theory, you have to back your idea with a lot of research and data. It cannot be an irrational choice or an emotional choice that you make. You have to read up about, I'm sure you've heard of matrices like the TAM, the total addressable market, the CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, about the total industry size, market size, how much of future opportunity, as you mentioned, should be independent of time, and how can I build an organization? It has to be backed by data and research. Thereafter, finally, once you back your data, of course, there has to be some emotional push or motivation, as again Saurabh had mentioned. There has to be irrational optimism or perseverance, that once you know and are very sure about data and rationale and logic backing your idea, then you can pick up and again possibly choose to marry. Or again, the root or the origin could be anything. It could be an experiential problem. It could be something that you've seen, something that you face. It could be something that you're very passionate about. Or maybe just in some cases, as Pratyush had also mentioned, that you start with a journey and then you start navigating through. So your startup need not be something necessarily that you're very passionate about, because as you build a baby and as you raise a baby, you start becoming more passionate about it. So when I started, I just launched headphones. Today we make smartwatches as well. And we were not, we used to run away from manufacturing thinking it's a non-glamorous, non-sexy business. But today the core of the business is manufacturing and we're very passionate about it. So once you start building or raising a baby, you start becoming passionate about anything and everything that you do. And that's what Vishal and other panelists also mentioned. That passion and motivation will come along with the way. But again, you need to be very scientific with your choices and then back it with irrational motivation and perseverance and optimism, and that will possibly help you steer your way.
Definitely, I believe these insights are going to stay with us. Vishal, coming to you, technology is changing faster than ever. These days, we are hearing a word chat GPT, and a lot of founders are talking about it, that this is going to disrupt Google as well. New industries would come up. Do you believe in that idea? And simultaneously, do you think that like Google created new industries altogether, be it into digital marketing, chat GPT is going to affect the startup world as a whole, and new industries, new ideas are going to come up now?
I don't know much about GPT outside of, I've tried to look up a few answers online, but technology as a topic, that too in B2B, B2B, like Varun very rightly said, very unglamorous, unsexy. A lot of you would not have heard of Zedwork. And which is why the role of technology as a catalyst in a B2B setup it has never been explored. Some of our suppliers, the highest level of technology that they have used is an Excel sheet. Some others have it in their head. Kal itna steel kharida tha, utna issue kiya tha, kal 10 labor aaye the. So that's the level of technological evolution in B2B broadly, right? If you now look at corporates, the larger companies, like I said, I was working at ITC. The best technology that was used there was ERP. And I used to struggle applying for a leave on ERP. Pratyush would echo with me. You miss out a click somewhere, it goes back to the first page. And on one hand, you're using a Facebook and a Twitter. On the other hand, you have to go to an app like that to apply for a leave or apply for reimbursement. And that's the highest technology in ITC, right? So you can imagine in a B2B setup, technology doesn't exist, right? It has, unfortunately, most of the software engineers in the country, naturally so also, are more gravitated towards B2C, building apps. You'll find the finest food delivery apps, you'll find the finest e-commerce apps in the country, very intuitive. But on the other hand, our customers and suppliers are ordering goods worth hundreds of crores every month, and they're doing it here or in an Excel. So and we are seeing it, with all the progress that has happened in the technology space in B2C. These are the same guys who are, when they go home, they order biryani on Swiggy, and they would want to have something like that at work also. And some of the project management suites that we have, which our customers use to track their project progress, has got amazing adoption, right? All of them log into it, and now they're saying that, why don't you take over all my projects and show it to me here? It's so easy to show it to my management, the progress in this kind of a format, rather than pulling data from 100 places, put it in an Excel sheet and show the progress. So technology is absolutely will be the game changer in the B2B space in coming years. And we're very excited about it and doing the right investments in that space.
Great. So Pratish, on the similar lines, when we talk about B2B, a very important word we are hearing for the last 2 years is D2C now. We are talking a lot about direct to customer. So do you think that this B2B will gradually shift towards that? Because you were also into that space and now you are dealing with a lot of SMEs. Do you believe that D2C is going to supersede B2B as well?
So see, you are getting to know more about D2C right now because VC funding is going there, but D2C has been there for a very long time as of now, right? And it is not more like B2B will go to D2C eventually, but it is more about how the value chain is set up and what part of value chain you select to operate in. For example, if you're operating in a B2B business, which is in turn that B2B, the second part of B is in turn supplying to another business. So you have created a B2B2B chain, right? But the last P which is there, they will be supplying it to consumers. For example, say there is an SME which supplies to HUL, and HUL in turn supplies it to again a distributor, which is again a B, but the distributor again supplies it to a consumer. So eventually it goes down to the consumer, jahan par consume ho raha hai. And it depends upon which part of the value chain you pick up to operate in and where you see value to disrupt over there and whether you can make money over there. For example, Udan was in a space which was more B2B2C, right? And they were more concentrated towards getting the cash flow from the consumers to run their business. And eventually they realized that's not a good business model maybe to run in. And they started pivoting themselves to again back to the B2B segment, right? So will B2B go to D2C? D2C has been prevalent for a very long time. Okay, and depending upon where you find value and where you can make money, you should operate in that space. Within off business, we saw that there are certain segments like consumer brand segments where there is a lot of margins and the cash flows are very, very good. Fundamentally, the SMEs are very high EBITDA businesses, so we go and just acquire them in order to increase our bottom line, and where we see that there is a huge growth potential.
So I believe that when we talk about B2B business, there's not much of brand image which is required in front of the customer because we are directly dealing with business. But Varun, do you think that in the recent years, Bolt Audio is collaborating with a lot of big celebrities, including Saif Ali Khan, Surya Kumar Yadav, they are coming on the website. Do you think that that brand image is more important for a D2C brand? Like, how do you sustain that as well? How important is that?
So, of course, if you're in a consumer business and you're speaking to end consumers, they will not, unlike a B2B business, the profile, the validation history of the organization, and a lot more tech that they're using matters, which is the choices a lot more scientific and rational in nature in a B2B transaction. However, if you're speaking about a B2C transaction, and of course, I'm sure everybody's studying consumer behavior and how as consumers we make choices and what are cognitive choices versus affective choices and so on. The idea is that you're dealing with consumers, you're dealing with emotional beings. And how do you deal with emotional beings in terms of convincing them to buy your product? And the one, of course, an easy hack is to get an ambassador where you get overnight validation. Let's say if you're buying a bottle of let's say fancy vitamin water, and you see suddenly a Virat Kohli's picture on it, which is a brand that he endorses called Ocean. There is a lot more validation that builds in it. And then you might be willing to pay, let's say 100 rupees, but it might take the brand a few more years to convince a customer to buy my vitamin water for 100 rupees, unless they have that immediate validation that you get from an ambassador. However, the buck doesn't stop there. It has to be backed with all the other 4 Ps, which means you have to focus on the product. There has to be innovation, there has to be quality, and has to be backed with after sales support as well. Because of course, building a brand or marketing does not just mean to convince, or it is just does not end at pre-purchase. It also binds up and stitches into the post-purchase journey as well. And of course, if you're able to do that considerably well, that will come back to you. In our case, we're in the digital industry. It comes back to us in form of reviews and ratings, where customers are able to see that 1 million customers, or for a specific SKU, 10,000 or 100,000 customers have reviewed this product with 4+ ratings. So be it customer service, be the product quality, comes back to you. In case of B2B, of course, it comes back in form of repeat purchase and repeat orders and much larger transactions. So brand building is good. Getting ambassadors is good. To be able to tell your story is, of course, very important. To be able to thereby back it up with a good product and good customer service will, of course, be able to sail you through in the longer run.
Great. So Avelo, building on the similar lines, what do you think, because you have seen around the world, you have created startups for a long time. What do you think are going to be the next big ideas for budding entrepreneurs? What are the ideas? What are the things we should look forward apart from technology? What do you think that these are the things which are going to change and probably going to become the next unicorns?
Fortune telling is not one of my skills, but it is important to be a futurist for sure. And you were asking initially that how do you decide a good startup, good idea? So I wanted to say it starts with a problem that's problematic enough that people are willing to pay for it, right? It's a need, not a want. So even in a pandemic, you have to eat, you have to have medicines, you have to have certain things. So if there's a need, then there is. So looking 3 to 5 years from now with 5G technology, augmented reality, a lot of these technologies are going to pop up. Entertainment is going to be boosted, but there's also going to be cyber crimes. There's going to be identity thefts. There's going to be mental health issues, right? Just to give you a little understanding, men versus women, men more have been affected by this. We are more prone to clicking a button and getting something done, right? Click a button, here is Tinder, here's a hookup, click this button, okay, I got a cab, click this button, so we are like, okay, so when we get into a relationship, what happens is, I'm in the mood, let's go into intimacy. And the other person says, not in the mood right now. Okay, I'm going on another app, right? Divorce, separation, breakup. Women, on the other hand, have handled, this new technology very well. So they're making better leaders, better CEOs, because they're by default emotionally more acute than we are, right? Now, with this scenario, guess what? We are going to have all the pleasures of life available to us at a click, but we are not going to be happy. Now, that's where the human aspect comes in. So mental health and softer side of things, entertainment, comedy, all of these. So look at TV, what is it, TVF? Yes. Right? They have become such a massive, giant production house. And there are so many more YouTubers of that have become giant businesses. So same way, if we just look back, because history repeats itself, from our own history, we see back 100 years ago, we missed out on the Industrial Revolution. What happened during that time? Suddenly, time opened up. And as time opened up, entertainment industry boomed. Movie industry, radio industry boomed, right? Same thing right now. Most of us spend at least 4 to 5 hours every day on social media, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, because we have the time, we can afford it. Things are automated, right? And that's going to grow more, but that will also. So I can't tell you what will be the next unicorn or what. I don't think that's the goal either, but there will be future problems. And if you can solve those problems that are problematic enough, there will be somebody who's willing to pay for you. If you can make 1 million people smile, you can make $1 million. You can help 1 billion people solve their problems, you can make $1 billion. So that's the formula I go with. And that's my answer for your question.
Definitely. And I believe these insights are going to add a lot of thought process in our thinking process. Whenever we are planning to build something on our own, these things are going to guide us. Before I open the panel to audience and they can ask a few questions, I would like to ask a rapid fire question with each of you. And starting with Vishal, you, if you can get back into time and if you have to advise your younger self, what is that one advice you would like to give yourself as an entrepreneur now?
Join a startup or start your own company sooner.
Because I believe Pratish last night was telling me that you all were working together under ITC and then few of the unicorn ideas emerged out of that. So that way. Pratyush, if you have to make a crazy prediction for the next 5 years about this startup world, what would be that?
I would go with Avilo's answer. I'm not a pure fortune teller. I wouldn't make any predictions with respect to that. But certainly the scenario looks very, very vibrant and positive with respect to how the startup ecosystem is evolving in India altogether. And having these kind of sessions and where the next gen as well as the younger generation are getting more inclined towards starting up a company rather than what used to happen previously, that itself will change the fabric of startup ecosystem. But what will happen in the next 5 years, I'm not a fortune teller to tell that.
Varun, coming.
I have a crazy prediction, or rather a will or a want. I'd love to see at least 10 of you do your startups in, let's say, 2028. And the next time, I mean, you guys shouldn't be here. At least one or two of you have to be on this panel in 2028, where all of you have to come back and have to get back to the future batches. That's a good thing to know. By the way, I hope we have the video recording of the people who raise their hands for entrepreneurship. The PlaceCom should make a note that these guys could possibly opt out of the summer the placements.
Coming to you, Avilo, like you have done so many things, but if you can go back in time and you can change one thing about your past, what would you like to change in your professional journey?
I was invited to Shark Tank. I actually got in, and there was a 44-page contract in which it said that 2% of our revenue would go to ABC perpetuity. And our investors and advisors at the time, they said, oh, it's for housewives, because the only thing we had was Dragon's Den in UK, and we didn't know how big Shark Tank would be. So we rejected the offer. And I learned from that how big Shark Tank became. I was like, you know what? When media invites, just go for it. Bad media, good media doesn't that.
And Varun, coming to you, because you are in a digital product, apart from India, if you had to start the same startup, which country would you opt for?
So now, of course, we're going into the West. Countries like we've launched already in UK and we're launching in US. But if I were to today again get an opportunity, I would build another startup in India or maybe another developing country, because again, in developing countries, there is huge amount of growth and opportunity, which is where in more developed economies, of course, it is very difficult to find that gap. Because there are a lot of already established organizations, and there is technology which is penetrated deeply, and which makes it very difficult for you to find a gap. So I would love to start something again in India or another developing economy.
So one final question to all four of you from my end. Pratyush, if not of business or Oxizo, what is it?
I would say it would be off business in Oxizo in some parallel other world, but it would be this forever.
Same question for you, Vishal. If not Zwork, what is it now?
If not, what else?
Yeah.
I would be a badminton player.
Avilo, if not Kolkata Ventures.
Monk. I am a monk. I'm not married, so anyway, but yeah, monk.
And Varun, concluding with you, if not Bolt Audio, what else is?
So I'm a passionate musician, so I'd love to be a musician, a full-time musician. But I'm always a cheerleader for all, as I always say. While D2C and consumer business is a lot more fancy and sexier, I'm always a big cheerleader for non-fancy, unsexy businesses. And of course, we have 3 B2B companies sitting on this panel, and they're doing a fabulous job at what they do. So it is important to, when you look at your next big startup, it's not just necessarily have to be a personal problem. It could be a business problem. And let's say you could be providing trucks to business organizations and make another Revigo. It could be making technology for businesses, or you could be making products that could help a much larger organization. So, if given an opportunity, I'd urge you guys to look at B2B problems which are not so seen in the world, which are not so sexy, not so glamorous. And if you can build something out of it, they will help you make a big fortune out of that.
Thank you. all the panelists. And I believe last couple of questions have given us ideas apart from entrepreneurship as well. We have got some key hobbies, probably some alternative career path which we can choose for. And from now, I will hand over it to Dilpreet.
Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you all the panelists for sharing your views with us. I would now request Shovik sir to present a token of appreciation to all our guests.
In the meanwhile, if anyone is having any questions, please. No, I will just.
Thank you all the panelists. My question is for Varun. You truly said that it's not a glamorous business, but the products for sure are sexy. And that's what is driving the audience. It's lovely to know that you are venturing into West now. I was reading an article on New York Times and many similar articles that were telling how the electronics are a gold mine now, but they are also into the landmines now. And 3 to 5 years from now, we'll get to see many of those because the common shelf life of these TWS are 3 to 5 years. No wonder they cost yeah, 10K, 20K, 30K. Most of them end up in landfills towards 3 to 5 years. So I engaged on social media sites with almost every founder who were promoting their TWS. I couldn't get a reply, but yes, Aman reacted on one of those tweets. My suggestion was that why aren't we say that we are solving problem, of course, and why aren't we looking into TWS with replaceable batteries? Because there are in West, I guess there are only couple of brands that are doing TWS with replaceable batteries. Just like our razor blade model, they are selling those TWS for the cheaper prices, whereas they are earning more on the recurring battery costs. So they are giving a case full of replaceable batteries, so you need not charge it more often. You can just pop it up, switch, and use it. So there is a minor change in design, and it also compares the TWS with the ones that Apple sells. So they Apple products are the worst one when it comes to repair. The teardown is nearly impossible as we are advancing towards the new age designs, and there are policies that are being filed to make it easier to repair. So if I comprehend all of it into a smaller question, can we see a trend towards replaceable batteries in TWS, and can you be the pioneer? Since you are venturing into the West, it should be a good move.
A very good question, even though it took a lot of time to finally get to the question. But a good question. I'm glad that you've read up so much on the subject. That shows a lot of knowledge. So yes, so the idea is on building modular products. So of course, there's a big way and a big scope in terms of building modular products where if something goes wrong, we can fix it. By the way, the government of India has also come out with a lot of e-waste compliances and guidelines. Where we are also now e-waste compliant, and there are a lot of certifications that we need to get approved to finally make a product or launch it. There is a certain amount of e-waste quota that we have to recall our products back from our consumers, and then responsibly dispose the products rather than just filling up the landmines and landfills. And also the idea is to again reuse those products. Just to give you an example, how we work on our refurbishing and replacement and repairs. So we accept defected products from our consumers and give out refurbished products or try to repair them as much. A lot of our funded competition, sometimes they give a no questions asked replacement policy that allows a customer to get a new product and the older defective product is just dumped. So for us, we of course are frugal in our innovation, and thus we try to replace as many products. Secondly, of course, the idea is, as you mentioned, has to be building modular products, but there's of course a question on acceptance that when you make a product, of course, it will come at a higher cost. It will lead to lack of stability because of course the product has different detachable parts, they will go wrong. So that's why of course any watch or any product that you see has a non-detachable battery, including what we see in iPhones. But if we are able to make products wherein
we can have a modular structure and we can replace any component that will allow us to just maybe just dump that one component than the entire product. But even if, let's say, the entire product goes bad, and if we create a reverse movement mechanism for these products, we can replace, fix individual components and thereby sort of pump it back into the circuit rather than dumping it in landmines, as you said. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Varun, for taking that up. Now, I would request Professor Sarangi to felicitate our guests with a token of appreciation. Sarangi sir is giving me very tough looks.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Pratyush Nalla of Business. Mr. Vishal Chaudhary. And Mr. Ravelo Roy. We also have a small token for our moderator, Mr. Saurabh Kothari. Thank you once again for being so patient and attending the first half of the conclave. Now we will break for lunch, but before that, I request all of you to assemble in front of the Learning Center for a photograph. Students are requested to remain seated and leave only after the speakers. Thank you, and we will resume the discussions at 2 p.m.